6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How about we do it again?
6, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think I followed it.
Okay, let's try one more
I
time.
definitely
Ready?
I can move you. Making review. Making review.
Say
6,
5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to episode 176 and the first episode of the 8th season of Rank and Review. This episode, regular guest Lee Beckmann is going to join me, your host and random Canadian Larry Parsons, to discuss the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Full disclosure, Mr. Beckmann and I have talked about two of these movies before. We talked about Wes Craven's New Nightmare in the Wes Craven episode of Rank and Review, and we discussed Freddy vs. Jason in our retrospective discussion of the Friday the 13th franchise. So those two reviews are going to be repurposed for this episode. But you are going to get Lee Beckmann and Larry Parsons' take on all of the Nightmare on Elm Street films leading up to the remake. As usual, you should go into this episode knowing that there's going to be spoilers for the movies we discuss, as well as coarse language, especially from me. If you have feedback to send me, you can do that. Send that feedback to ranknreview@gmail.com. That's ranknreview@gmail.com. The website is ranknreview.ca. And thank you so much for listening to the show. I'm so happy to be back. We are going to be leading up to the big 200th episode this season, as well as at some point celebrating my 1000th review. Big things ahead for Rank and Review. Thank you for being here. Now let's get into some nightmares. So this is the 176th episode of Rank and Review. It is also the first episode of the 7th season of Rank and Review. And this rank of 25 episodes is going to lead us up to the big 200.
It could be like the 007 of this series.
Yeah, well...
Down.
So yeah, season opener, big news, regular contributor, Mr. Lee Beckmann. Today, here we sit in your basement to discuss Nightmare on Elm Street. I have to say that it's exciting for two reasons to me. One, I can't believe it took 176 episodes to get to Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I would have imagined it in my head somehow it would have happened fairly quickly in the thing. But also in the strange days that we're in with the whole plague and pandemic going on, it has been months and months since I've been actually able to record a podcast face to face with somebody, and it is very refreshing. So thank you for hosting me. We're in Mr. Beckmann's basement to discuss Nightmare on Elm Street.
Thank you for coming.
And it's nice to not have to deal with the computer. It's nice to not be talking to a screen.
It's painfully good to see you, actually.
It gets you so far talking on a screen, but somehow, man, it's
It's
just better.
It's just not as intimate,
Yeah.
Like, I always feel like we should be doing this this conversation by candlelight almost. Just go like way old school.
We missed each other. So, welcome to another season of Rank and Review.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mr. Beckmann.
Thank you.
How do you feel about Mr. Frederick Krueger?
Frederick Krueger. Oh wow, I'm getting a rather regal kind of feeling to it. Hey man, it's the house that Freddy built. I always loved that sentence. I like Freddy Krueger. He was such a huge cultural icon when you and I were kids.
everywhere.
Everywhere. Like, it's really strange that during our time in pop culture, that one of the most popular toys for kids our age and
Freddy
younger,
glove.
with the Freddy glove and Freddy plush toy and Freddy lunchbox, for a time, one of the best-selling toys was a child molesting serial killer. It's really bizarre.
I think that is something that might be underwritten about people of our age. Like, we were both born in the late 70s.
Yep.
Grew up our childhood in the 80s,
Yep.
early 90s. But, like, in this time frame, there was an animated series of Rambo.
Yep. And
There was
G.I.
a
Joe.
Rambo
Yep.
animated series,
Yep.
right? Like, the stuff that was being directed at kids was weird, even like the mainstream stuff. But yeah, you're right. Freddy Krueger on a lunchbox. I remember seeing a couple of them when I was a kid at
Trading
school.
cards, yeah.
And I even thought, like, I was jealous that they had a Nightmare on Elm Street lunchbox. But even as a kid,
Yeah.
I clocked that as strange.
Yeah.
That next to, Peter Pan and Star Wars and,
Yeah.
like, Disney whatever,
Yeah.
Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Like, that is deep cultural penetration.
I've got a funny story about Freddy Krueger in pop culture. So, of course, they made Freddy Krueger, like Marvel Freddy got into the comic book business.
Of course.
And there was a 3 comic book issue of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I got the first one, and I loved it. And it was harsh. It showed the actual creation, the birth of the bastard son of 1,000 maniacs. It actually showed that in there, and of course Freddy killing all these teenagers, just really gross. And my mom got a hold of it and just freaked out. Like, even the cover.
Susan wasn't on board with Nightmare on Elm Street?
No, she was just like, whoa. And even trying to it came down to we had a conversation.
Oh, good.
And she was going to buy the comic book from me. And this is why, and because, like, it was the front cover was like Freddy holding a woman in his glove and kind of smiling, and she was saying these claws are like penises and everything, and I'm like,
Oh, wow.
and I'm like, okay, you went way overboard. It's a horror comic, Mom, but
Yeah.
like, there was no way I was keeping that thing, and so I always had this this really guilted love for Freddy Krueger.
Well, see, your mom couldn't have made it more, like... It's forbidden now.
Yeah.
Now
Oh, yeah.
that it's forbidden, the
Yeah.
allure of it is
Yeah.
irreversible.
Yeah.
She would have done better to ignore it, but I guess I don't see that make it. But, like, would she have rather found pornography?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
But there is a sort of dark sexual undertone to the Nightmare films.
And slasher movies.
Yeah,
which
I mean, it is sex and death once again, but...
As like, fantastical and as mixed in fantasy as Nightmare on Elm Street is,
Yeah.
let's not romanticize it.
Yeah.
These are slasher movies.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
In my mom's defense, though, like, there was actual rape in there. Like,
Was there?
Well,
I haven't read the comic book.
Yeah,
obviously.
no. Like, I remember, like, even as I was reading, I was like, whoa, this is pretty out there. So, in defense of my mother, who might listen to this, it was pretty out there.
No.
Anyways,
we're not
so
talking down to Susan and Shelley anyway.
Yeah.
But I think if you are listening, Susan, do your due diligence and watch all of these.
She will never do it. She will never, ever do it.
Well, of course, we have Wes Craven to
Yep.
thank for this whole
Yep.
enterprise. And we've did an entire episode dedicated to Wes Craven. We actually talked about his new
Yep.
nightmare
Yep.
in that episode. So
Yep.
that will be dealt with at some point in this episode.
I think I have a reason why it took so long for Freddie to make it onto your show.
What do you think?
It's just throughout the years, one by one, it got reviewed, the Nightmare series. So.
Some of them have been.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I don't mind doing an isolated review of a Nightmare on Elm Street, because then it can be sort of ranked against other horror movies.
Yeah.
This list, we're ranking Elm Street against Elm Street.
That's true.
Wes Craven, who came up with this idea because he read some articles about these people who had been through traumatic experiences in the war, I believe they were in some internment camps or something like this.
Yeah.
When they came home, they started having these nightmares to the point where they were too terrified to go to sleep. And in some cases, they legitimately appeared to die in their sleep from the dreams.
Yeah.
There was a series of articles about it. It always stuck in his head.
Yeah.
And he plugged it into this Freddy Krueger character. And like I said, it is a dressed up slasher villain, but it did elevate what was in danger of becoming an already stagnant slasher world.
Apparently, there was also a sort of string of bizarre deaths around the time that he was writing this script, where some young Asian men who were trying to stay up, awake for their exams, all of a sudden couldn't get back to sleep, and then he went insane.
Yeah.
Because they just couldn't sleep anymore.
Apparently, these days we're seeing it with crazy hardcore gamers.
Yes. I don't want to. I'd go off on a weird tangent. But I have stories
about that.
Yeah. But anyways.
Well, but what I think he successfully did, over and above creating a character that, like we said, penetrated deeply into pop culture, was we were seeing slasher movies every week.
Yeah.
It took a while for this movie to get made because I think nobody was taking it seriously because they were reading it like another slasher movie.
Yeah.
The dream thing. The dream aspect to the movie is what makes Nightmare on Elm Street the next level franchise.
Abso-fucking-lutely. I'm surprised it took this long for a filmmaker to come up with the idea that a dream demon is the one that's picking off kids. I mean, the possibilities could be endless because it's going into a different universe. But I digress and interrupt.
You cannot run from sleep.
Yeah.
In theory... And I love Jason. My love for Friday the 13th is large.
I understand.
But a problem with every single Friday the 13th, maybe with the exception of Jason on a boat, is that if you run in one direction for long enough, you're out of that fucking situation.
Yep.
That is not the case with Freddy Krueger. You have to face this guy. You have no choice. Even if you stay up for 8 or 9 days, sooner or later, you're going to go. Plus, just the interesting scientific aspect that nobody has a real full grasp of why animals sleep, including us, or what dreams really are.
Yeah.
Yes, our brain shows us pictures while we're unconscious, but
it
why,
can create narratives, actually.
Why, how, what do they mean? I mean, there are people who make their living interpreting dreams, but it's... Honestly, to my mind, it has to be similar to tea leaves or phenology, right?
Yeah.
The vast mystery of dreams. Throw a serial killer in there.
Yep.
You're not even safe when you're sleeping.
Yep. It's a terrifying concept. It's a terrifying concept.
And so that was the thing that was giving kids nightmares. I think I loved the Friday the 13th series more than I loved the Nightmare on Elm Street series when I was a kid. But I think Freddy was a scarier figure in my head, which is why... and we'll get into it when we start going through the movies, I kind of personally get disappointed how much of a cartoon he becomes as we get deeper into the series. The funnier and wackier and more, quote, out there Freddy gets, the less I'm into it.
Yeah.
Which is weird. It seems different. When the Friday the 13th, I like them to be fun. I like the goofier, silly bits to the Friday the 13th movies. But I think... on some level, if you're dealing with a child murderer, you got to maybe take it a little bit seriously.
Yeah, in some sort of ways, it's also a monster movie. You could argue that Freddy isn't... Well, I guess you could also argue that Jason is a monster. So, but yeah. Well,
and his powers are get redefined movie to movie.
Yes.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's a fairly adequate introduction.
Yeah, no.
I don't Freddy doesn't really need much of an introduction.
Who
doesn't in the world?
Yeah.
Who doesn't know who Freddy
And
Krueger is?
a special shout out to Freddy's Nightmares. The TV series was on for 2 or 3 seasons.
My memory of it, even when I was 14 or whatever, is that it was awful.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. Do you remember STV when it first got started in Saskatoon?
I might have not even been in Saskatoon yet.
Oh, sorry. I just aged myself. Ooh, embarrassing. Anyways, one of the first things they did, it was put on Freddy's Nightmares at, 10 o'clock at night, and whoa, some of the stuff they were.
Super segue.
Yeah.
In this new age with horror television, Walking Dead, Chucky's got a TV show. Apparently, Hellraiser's getting a TV show.
Yeah.
Exciting times.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for when I was a kid, when they did the Nightmare on Elm Street TV show and the Friday the 13th TV show, they were so awful.
Yeah.
They were so awful.
Oh, I know.
Fun
and
fact,
low production, too.
David Cronenberg directed an episode of Friday the 13th. I read that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think some of the directors on the Nightmare one was actually
Toby Hooper did the pilot.
Yeah, did he?
Yeah, but the show's apparently like a hard thing to watch. I remember staying up late to watch it because I was excited for it. Anyway, I think we should jump into the series.
Yes.
We're not going to review the TV show, guys. I'm sorry.
Sorry, that was me. I took it off course. I'm so sorry.
No.
I wanted to sort of capture the whole like cultural phenomenon that was Fred Krueger.
I was talking about the Friday the 13th TV show. We're doing well.
Okay.
Today, Mr. Lee Beckmann
Yep.
and your host and random Canadian Larry Parsons are going to review and then rank A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge.
Yes.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master.
Rock that shit.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child.
Oh yeah, he's going.
Freddy's Dead.
Yep.
The Not Final Nightmare.
It just be called the movie that lied.
Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Freddy vs. Jason, and
Yes.
we'll finish it with the remake
Yes.
of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. Let's do this shit.
Yes.
You could just see cuts happen.
What did that, Lieutenant?
I don't know.
What's the coroner got to say? He's in the jaw and puking since he saw it.
They're gonna kill me for sure.
Did you do it?
There was somebody else there.
He was locked in a room with a girl who went in alive and came out in a rubber bag.
No one knows where it came from or who it will visit next.
Nancy? There's something wrong with you. You're imagining things.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Do you believe in the boogeyman?
No.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
We made this plan to record the Nightmare on Elm Street podcast, and I was going to come here for these dates. And as fate would have it, A Nightmare on Elm Street was playing at the Landmark Cinema. And like they just opened things up because of the whole broken world and the pandemic and whatever. So we went and saw the movie on the big screen because it seemed like the universe was telling us that we must. And it was just last night, and I have to say I really enjoyed seeing this movie large and loud.
Yeah. Like the first, like even that opening bit, it was rocked hard by the sound. I can't imagine what this movie would have been like. Like no one had ever really seen something quite like this. Yes, it was a slasher, but like it's this whole monstrous dream demon with sheep running around and people in body bags being like dragged across. Like this movie is a capital H horror movie, straight from the word go. There's no lull. It's like bang, you're in it.
Yeah, it's and it is. There's not a lot of winking or laughter to it at all.
No.
Freddy is purely a terrifying figure in this movie, and much more in the shadows to the benefit of the movie.
That was something else that I hadn't really noticed seeing the big screen, is that there is a lot more shadow with Freddy. Like he starts off bathed in darkness and then comes in. We really don't get a really good look of Freddy's face until about the 45-minute mark.
Yeah, and even in like when we see the burned in the shadows and stuff, it's got this raw, wet, sort of meaty sort of texture to it.
Yeah.
It's almost less like a burn, more like the flesh is rotting off his face somehow.
It's like an overcooked pork chop.
Like if you touched him, it would just fall off, sloosh off his face.
Yeah.
You can tell the movie's made in the 80s, but it is still a really strong horror movie, I think. And again, the imagination is deep. I can't imagine that there's a lot of people listening to this who don't know the story, but just for the sake of argument.
Okay, here we go, yes.
Nancy and a bunch of her friends who live in the Elm Street neighborhood area are having dreams about this strange, besweatered, razor-gloved dude chasing them. And one fateful night, Nancy's friend was so terrified of her dreams that she wanted to have company because her mom was away. And she has the dream. Freddy shows up, and in arguably one of the most iconic horror movie kills in history, I think I would put it to be with the shower scene in Psycho.
Yeah, it's up there. It's disturbing.
It's a really ugly kill. Tina's death is brutal. And we like Tina, and it's traumatizing, and it's like you kind of I didn't like her boyfriend until that scene. after he had to go through that, and like I was officially on his side.
Yeah.
A dick you were, but you did not deserve this.
No, it's a sort of slow walk to his death. Even
Nancy slowly becomes aware that like this Freddy Krueger guy is after her in her dreams, and it seems like her parents know something or know more than they should. There's another card to be dropped, and of course, so plays out the rest of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
I had a few controversial things to say after we said it. I'm going to still stand by it.
Okay.
I don't want to talk shit about the actress Heather Langenkamp.
Yeah.
I don't think that she's an amazing actress.
Yes.
I think she was absolutely right for this part.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I don't think she's an amazing actress. She's a genuine teenager.
Yeah.
And she's strong. She's got moxie. And we like her and we cheer for her.
Yes.
And that's what makes Nancy work.
Yes.
I don't think it's because Langenkamp is an amazing actress.
Yeah, when she like emotes sadness, it's hard to watch.
Well, I mean, I'm not mean about it.
Yeah.
It's the same way I would grade like a first-time performance from practically a child actor. She's a teenager. I think she was like 17 or 18 when she
20. The joke is
the joke about it. So they made her look a little bit younger. But yeah, she did look like a teenager to me, especially in the age of the 80s where you'd see people in high school that looked like
even
they were...
Johnny Depp, you could probably get away, well, maybe grade 12.
They were older, but they were still a little bit too old for high school. But by 80s standards, I'm saying, when you'd see people who had like crow's feet under their eyes and like, you know,
bags.
You got to be at least 30. At least.
Yeah.
You're not a freshman in high school. Okay. Yeah. They didn't step onto that particular line, man. Some of the fashion's a little bit funny. Some of the hair's a little bit funny. But I mean, take it on the chin, people.
Yeah. It's not so 80s.
No.
But it's a movie made in the 80s.
I mean, we reviewed Night of the Demon, right?
Yeah.
So like,
that's a movie that is...
That's an 80s.
Yeah.
I love the scale of the movie. In a lot of ways, like, the big scores sometimes kind of get on my nerves sometimes.
Yeah.
It's the odd movie. I recently talked about Bram Stoker's Dracula on the podcast. That's one of the rare movies that kind of gets away with the constantly screaming score.
Yeah.
But I found that the score constantly filling everything, especially when the boiler scenes.
Yeah.
Like... In a way, when the sound dropped out, it was a gimme for the jump scare.
Yeah.
But all of that noise kind of got to me in the theater, and it was something that I hadn't clocked before. I think because I'd never watched it that way. Yeah. That actually added to the experience of the movie. In a way, the noise is as scary as the silence. In the silence, you can hear a pin drop, but in that hum and rumble and noise, someone could be standing right behind you.
Yeah.
And you have no idea.
Yeah, and that classical score by, I think, Charles Bernstein. Am I saying that wrong, incorrectly? 1, 2, Freddy's Coming for You. All of that. Like, that is... Everyone knows that song.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that song. In fact, it was parodied by a young Will Smith, you know, all those years later with his Nightmare on Elm Street.
Sweet.
Do you remember that one?
I don't think I do. Will Smith was rapping about Elm Street?
You've never heard of My Nightmare on Elm Street?
I don't know if you know this, but Larry's not a big hip-hop guy.
Either that or I am like a really bad nerd.
I don't know. I heard Freddie had an album, but we're getting off the topic. Yeah. One thing that people tend to forget about Nightmare on Elm Street as well is that it was actually a pretty low-budget movie.
Yep.
And at times it feels like it, but it mostly doesn't. Like, even looking at it now, in comparison to, like, other movies of its age, it doesn't feel low-budget. But I can't... Well, I was wondering while I was watching it if they really, really knew what they had. Yeah. Like, they were... In a way, Bob Shea, I think, was cashing in on the slasher craze.
Yeah, they make no bones about it.
And he definitely went in calculating wanting to make sequels and turn this into a franchise.
Yeah.
But I wonder if he really knew that Freddy Krueger was going to become
Freddy Krueger. No one knew. No one knew this movie popped like the way it did. No one knew. They went all in on this project. Bob Shea thought there was something special, both of Wes Craven, and this idea. But no one knew that it was going to pop like it did.
Right. Yeah. Even things that look like we pointed out, the long-armed Freddy.
Yeah.
That looks kind of weird. Honestly, when they show like a still frame of it, when they show a picture of it somewhere, it looks kind of weird. You only see that for a few seconds in it, and in the context of a weird dream where shit doesn't make sense. I don't question it. It's weird because it's the thing that a lot of people like to make fun of the movie, and I'm like, oh, it's just a strange image, undoubtedly. But it's much like that sheep in the hallway of the school. Like, why was that there? No reason at all, other than
I think it's kind of like a little Freudian sort of a little homage or something.
Well, maybe Wes Craven had an idea of what it is, but for me, it was like the sort of thing that you would see in a dream and not question. But then when you were recounting a dream to somebody later, you're like, yeah, there was like a goat or something in the hallway, right? It was just like this weird inclusion. And I really like that. This is something that subsequent Nightmare on Elm Street movies are going to repeatedly fail to take advantage of. When we did the Star Trek movies, I kept on saying, in Star Trek, you have all of these planets you could go. The universe is your playground. So why is it always fucking Klingons and always fucking Vulcans? In Nightmare on Elm Street, I have the same issue. Not in this particular movie, but as we're moving forward. You have the dream world to play in. There are no rules to that. Literally, everything is on the table. So why does it always come down to a chick in a boiler room? At least in this movie, they make the point that Freddy Krueger took his victims down to this boiler room, and that was kind of his, quote, playground, where he did his nasty business. And it's sort of metaphorically, the smaller version of it is the furnace in Nancy's house, where her mom, for some reason, keeps Freddy's glove as some sort of memento of her and the other Elm Street parents burning this child killer to death.
Didn't some serial killer bring his victims down to a boiler room?
I'm sure that is happening.
If anything, I'm sure it's some part of urban legend.
But it's sort of part of, in that way, it's part of Freddy's particular world. But so, in that way, if somebody's dreaming about Freddy's pulling him into his world by putting him in the dream world. And to me, the smart play for an Elm Street movie is they're in their dream world and Freddy gets in there and sort of infects it with Freddy. And then you can have anything. You can have anything. You can have a Freddy shark. You can have really out there stuff. Like nothing's off the table. So, and that's the rules that are established by the movie. The first time this movie was reviewed for the podcast, I reviewed it with my dear, dear friend Scott Lehman. And we both talked about how great it is, and I think you and I are still agreeing how great it is. But we both went on at length about the problematic ending. When I watched it last night, again, I wasn't bothered by the ending particularly. But I'm used to it now. Like, I wasn't surprised by it. I knew where this movie was going when I sat down. I would love to get your thoughts on this.
Bob Shea wanted the ending, Craven didn't. They kind of met begrudgingly, sort of in the middle.
But so you think the movie works in spite of the ending? You don't think the ending's any good either?
No. Yes. No. We're talking about like the ending, the mother being dragged through the window and whatnot. That was put upon Craven. He hated that idea.
This seems to happen to Craven a lot. Remember when we talked about was it Deadly Blessing?
Deadly Friend.
No, Deadly Blessing.
Deadly Blessing, okay.
Deadly Friend's a different Wes Craven movie. Sorry, but Deadly Blessing, at the end, he got forced to do that monster jumps out of the dark.
Right.
Same thing's happening here, right? But I wonder how this movie would have sat with us, too, at the time, if it really was Wes Craven's idea that it was all a dream. Nancy woke up and went to school. That the whole movie is a dream.
I'd hate that one.
I think we would hate that, too. So between those two endings, I don't know which would be, and you could still have the sequel either way. By the way, Bob Shea, I don't know. I think part of it too was again the classic Carrie scare: leave them laughing. Make them remember that punchy thing. Man, what a crazy movie, and tell your friends the next day at work, and then they're gonna drag their friends the next night. But I think I stand by what I said the first round that I reviewed the movie. That the movie is so good and so full of imagination and so scary. That it almost doesn't matter. At the end, it's like Jaws. I know that hurts to people's ears to say that, but there's a couple shots in Jaws where the shark looks bad. It looks really bad. That's not a convincing shot.
I think most people would be in agreement.
But the movie is so good that we just don't give a shit. We're just in it, and we're in
it to win it.
We'll take that. We'll take it. They're doing their best, and they're entertaining the shit out of us.
Yeah.
So I think it gets a pass.
Yeah.
But only this movie. Right?
Yeah.
Going forward, once they've, it's been a big blockbuster, and we have Freddy Krueger, the Dream Demon, hunting the Elm Street children, avenging his own death, and then I guess just continuing his child-killing ways. This is what I'm going to be looking at, right?
Okay.
Use it.
Yep.
And you don't get to cop out on the ending anymore. This is one thing I will give credit to the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
Okay.
They come up with a series of creative ways to quote unquote kill Freddy. They don't repeat themselves necessarily on that aspect.
Yeah. Well, can you kill Freddy now? Like that's the thing. I mean, maybe we shouldn't go down that rabbit hole, but
maybe not just yet.
Yeah. I mean, does he really even? Well, he doesn't die in this movie, technically.
Well, it again, in the original canonical idea of it, he was just a nightmare. He didn't ever really exist, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, and again, people would not like that, but no, Freddy is real, and he's here to kill the children of Elm Street.
Yeah. Okay, with you.
The thing that got a lot of laughs, I noticed in the theater. By the way, surprisingly well attended.
Yes.
We were talking about going to the movie at Sunday night, 9:35.
Yeah,
we might well be the only people there, right?
Yeah.
No, it was pretty well attended. I mean, they could only sell so many seats because of the
but
world.
I think it was sold out for
so?
a COVID screening.
But there was a few chortles, particularly thrown towards Nancy's mother.
Yeah.
She's like this alcoholic, overprotective.
Yeah.
She's got a few weird lines. And I think there's something half-assed about that actress's performance. I don't know if
she's not very good, but neither's the character.
Well, the character is difficult, but I think she's... I don't know this. I'm making it up, Lee. But, I got the feeling like that actress was slumming it. She was, maybe had a TV show or something. She did that other stuff she'd done before this. And she got this job in this Elm Street movie and thought it was going to be a forgettable slasher movie that no one would say. She doesn't seem invested.
Okay.
To me. She just doesn't seem invested.
Okay.
John Saxon, you pay your money for John Saxon. He's going to give you your John Saxon, right? Who's going to show up and do it.
Yeah. There's a great story I saw of him talking about Nightmare on Elm Street and him walking up to the director and he asked him, so this role you're hiring me for, is it like kind of like a romantic lead, or is it like a father figure or whatnot? And he goes, well, it's the chief of police, you're the daddy's, you're the father of Nancy. So he pulls out a series of wigs and goes, okay, this is my romantic lead, this is my sort of fatherly type. So this guy had he carried around with him a series of wigs.
How much hair do you need?
That's acting. That's professionalism. R.I.P., by the way, John Saxon, for those who don't know who he is. He has passed on recently, so rest in peace there, Mr. Saxon.
Also just cool to see, Charles Fleischer as the technician in the workshop. He voiced Roger Rabbit. He had that really creepy scene in Zodiac. And here he is in Nightmare on Elm Street. He shows up in the strangest places, this guy.
Yep. And of course we have young Johnny Depp, but I think most people know that by now. Yeah.
Well, again, celebrity spotting. The Nightmare series doesn't have as many celebrity spotting things as some, although we'll get to it when we talk about part 3 for sure.
It's fairly populated, actually.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's sort of some of the fun of looking back at these old franchises. Just sort of seeing the progression of film over the years of the franchise and seeing some, famous faces well before anybody gave a shit is kind of interesting to me. Lin Shaye, still young and fun, playing the teacher. That whole sequence in the school, and I remember as a kid when I first saw that, that sequence was terrifying to me. When she follows the blood trail into the hallway and there's all those snakes and shit or whatever in the body bag.
That's
unsettling. Again, very much Wes Craven. In the Wes Craven episode, we talked about his fascination with serpents. That's in here for sure.
He does love some snakes, man.
It's a weird movie to talk about in review. It's just so classic,
Yep. No, it's like I said, it's a capital horror film, a capital H horror movie. If you had to take the big 3 as the movies that started their franchises, Friday the 13th, Nightmare, and Halloween, which would you say is the strongest?
From a filmmaking perspective,
Yes.
or as like an example of a genre, well, in either way, I would say Halloween.
Yeah,
Probably.
I would too. At times, Nightmares are far more terrifying movies, though.
Yeah.
I credit like the opening 10 minutes of that movie. It just, bam, gets you there.
Well, I go back to what I said at the introduction, as far
Yeah.
as we thought we knew what slasher movies were.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like, I got to go back to Romero, the jump from Night of the Living Dead to Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead, you got a bunch of people in a farmhouse being seized by zombies.
Yeah.
Awesome, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, in Dawn of the Dead, you have a bunch of people in a shopping mall with an army of zombies,
Yeah.
and it's even more awesome. And we didn't know that the zombie movie could be elevated to this level until Dawn of the Dead. We didn't know that a slasher movie could be elevated
Yeah.
to this level.
Yeah.
And that's really what, like, Halloween basically set the bar as far as I'm concerned. I know a lot
Yeah.
of people will say Psycho, but fuck that. Halloween. And yeah, Black Christmas got there first, but
Yeah.
fuck that. Halloween.
Yeah.
That was the successful one. That was the Beatles of the slasher movies.
Some would argue that Peeping Tom was actually the first slasher film, but
But as far as popularizing
Yeah,
it
yeah,
and
Halloween.
putting in people's heads what a slasher movie is,
Halloween.
it's Halloween. And until, I would argue, Nightmare on Elm Street, and
Yeah.
including my beloved Friday the 13th,
Yeah.
nobody raised the bar again.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Halloween may be a better made movie, but
Yeah.
and maybe we needed Halloween to get to Nightmare on Elm Street,
Yeah.
but Elm Street pushed us forward.
Yep.
So bravo.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about Nightmare on Elm Street? I feel like I've just been
Well, the
talking around it almost.
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone knows it. It's been even talked about like on this podcast more than once. So I don't know what more we can say. It's a really good, and shout out to Robert Englund as well. Who,
Yeah, he's scary in this one.
yeah. Like it is a nasty, nasty, villainous
And
Freddy.
some people think that it's easy to play the villain,
Yeah,
or like that there's something goofy about the Freddy run.
Yeah.
To me, that's all calculated. This is all a choice.
yeah. Robert Englund has a great story. When you first see him, he comes out and his arms all kind of. No, that's the second time. Sorry. Because the first time is when his arms are stretched out.
Yeah.
He comes out and his glove was so heavy that it dragged his shoulder and his arm down, almost like a gunslinger. You can see it, and he comes out like that, and that's because the glove is so heavy. That's one of the first things they shot, and they hadn't quite worked out how Robert would use the glove.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's cool.
But even
Random comment.
even if it's a masked killer who doesn't say anything,
Yeah.
it's just never as easy as you think it would be to be
Yes.
the bad guy.
Yes.
It's just never as easy as you think it would be. I've seen Englund in other things, and sometimes he impresses me, and sometimes he doesn't.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they made this bit of casting for Nightmare on Elm Street. It's not. I don't necessarily think that Nightmare on Elm Street doesn't work without Robert Englund.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there were other actors out there that could bring us a scary Freddy Krueger, but this guy fucking brought it. So
Yep.
thank you,
Yep.
thank
Yep.
you.
Yeah.
And again, I'm sorry to be so mean about Heather Langenkamp. Like, I think she's the right girl for the movie.
Yep.
I wasn't knocked over
Yeah.
by her.
Yeah.
And again, that happens again when we talk about her in a couple of other movies. So,
Yes.
good enough?
Good enough.
in trouble. You've had some scary dreams, okay? Help!
Daddy can't help you now.
There's something inside him.
Fight him! You're not afraid of him. He doesn't even exist.
Freddy Krueger is back on Elm Street.
Get out of here, Lisa!
Jesse, fight him!
Watch out for him. He'll be in your neighborhood soon. A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 2.
You are all my children now.
Freddy's Revenge.
So once upon a time in Rank and Review, I did an episode called Terrible Twos with our mutual acquaintance Jeremy Cook.
Yes.
And we discussed Freddy's Revenge, Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yes.
The gayest of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies by a great degree.
By far.
And this movie has been rediscovered and made into a cult item. There's a documentary about it.
Yep.
The cat's out of the bag as far as this whole... I was about to say homosexual subtext, but it doesn't even feel like subtext when you watch the movie.
No, that's the wrong word.
So in a way, I'm glad that the movie's rediscovered. But here's the thing about this that's frustrating me.
Okay.
A lot of people are getting this conflated with the idea that it's a good movie.
Mm.
And it really, really isn't.
Yeah.
It has some really good moments in it.
Yeah.
There's some cool stuff in it. And the special effects in it.
By Chuck Yeager, no less. I would argue the special effects are well, maybe not better, but like on par. Freddy looks amazing in this movie.
Yeah. But there's also an exploding parakeet.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of really cringy scenes.
Yeah.
As hilarious as that scene is where the kid was dancing in his room.
Yeah.
Like, when I watched it again for this podcast, I was just like, I really wanted to skip that scene. I really wanted to skip past it. Like, I wanted everything to stop.
Yeah.
And there is something really crass about the whole gym teacher aggressively gay thing. There's some uncomfortable stuff in it too.
I have a question. Do you think the movie is homophobic?
I think the 80s were homophobic.
Yes.
So in that way, yes.
Yeah.
But that's the hilarious thing about the movie. Like, if everybody's to be believed, none of this was intentional, except for the writer. The writer was trying to sneak it in the back door.
No, I don't think he was sneaking. Well, haha, nice pun.
Thank you. But like he in the Never Sleep Again documentary, he said his position was he was going to try and put it in there, and if people who were looking for it could see it.
Yeah.
But it really seemed like every choice of the production accented the quote gayness of the movie. But
blame someone like the main set designer before that, because he read the script and all of a sudden went, I'm going to put this here, this pro game's going to be put here.
It's undeniably interesting. It's undeniably a curio. Like, it's watchably horrible, or it's a watchably bad movie.
It is the ultimate so bad it's good movie.
But I almost wish that it had happened in a way after Elm Street 3. Because 1 and 3 are a complete item of themselves. In a way, 3 gives 1 an awesome ending. The awesome ending that we didn't get with 1 were given with 3. And this aberration in between kind of sticks out as this sort of ugly, growth that doesn't fit. So like I for the series, it's not overall the best thing. But for the world, for trivia hounds, for B-movie delightists, for people who want to be entertained by some batshit crazy 80s, you should fucking watch Nightmare on Elm Street 2. For sure. For sure. It's a great, crazy 80s movie, but it's a terrible Nightmare on Elm Street movie. That's where I'm starting.
That's actually a great segue, where as a nightmare film, it is atrocious. But as something that, cinephiles should definitely get down and see, absolutely. You cannot take your eyes off this train wreck. You can't unsee it. You can't unsee it.
It has a wow factor.
It really does.
But for maybe not the right reasons.
Well, it's kind of funny. Much like how language can change over time, films can change over time. And what was, I think, probably one of the most homophobic movies when it was released has now turned into this, rah gay positivity movement. Like, there are academic classes devoted to this movie in, gender theory departments. It's wow.
So, premise.
Yes.
Jesse, young teenage boy, moves into the house.
Played by Mark Patton, yes.
Sorry?
Played by Mark Patton.
Mark Patton, thank you. Move into the house from the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
And right away, things are going south. He's having strange dreams. The house is getting crazy hot all of the time.
Yeah.
And I think the idea is that the suppressed bad icky thoughts in Jesse's head, his quote gay thoughts.
Yes.
I know you can't see my air quotes, you guys, but trust me, I'm doing the air quotes.
He's doing the air quotes, guys. Yeah.
His evil quote gayness
Yes.
is represented by Freddy Krueger.
Yes.
Freddy Krueger gets inside him and eventually physically erupts from him.
Yes.
Which to me, as amazing as that special effect is when the movie completely goes off the cliff. Freddy Krueger in the real world is a complete betrayal of the entire premise of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Everything that makes Freddy terrifying stops the second that happens.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's not even a dream
anymore. Not anymore.
No.
He's in the real. It's sort of
he's
like
more of a specter in this one.
At the end of the first one, he gets pulled into the real world, in which quote damage can happen to him, but then not at all, right? Whatever. Yeah. But at least it was a climactic piece in that one, right? Yeah. This was Freddy's goal. If you're a dream demon and you can kill people in their sleep and you have all this limitless power, why in the world? Like, why in the world would you want to go back to being a measly person running around in the real world who could be jailed or, Well,
does he kill anyone that's actually asleep in this movie? Because the coach,
he's awake.
Yep. His friend is awake.
Because Jesse's being possessed by Freddy. Yeah. So once again, they're not really using
the kids at the party. He just comes in and starts slaying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else Freddy kills in this movie. I know there's a couple of nightmares.
There's a great nightmare sequence at the beginning. I actually really like that opening sequence on the bus. It's sort of bookended with 2 bus sequences.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be convinced by the blue screening effects because of how old the movie is. But the bus driver starts driving way too fast and blowing past all the spots, and everybody who's still in the bus is freaking out. Then he drives off the road, and then the road starts disappearing beneath them, and all of a sudden they're teetering on this precipice above lava and having a fight with Freddy on the bus. Yeah. And the movie just started, and you're thinking, yes.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street, bitches.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
That's there's no more Nightmare on Elm Street for the rest of the movie, really. Yeah. It's a different movie.
Yeah. Stop me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think he kills anyone that is quote unquote dreaming.
Not in this movie.
Not in this movie.
I could be mistaken.
Which
the
totally
bird
goes
maybe,
against...
but the bird was flying.
Yeah.
But they made a point of selling us that the bird was asleep initially.
Yeah.
That was in a stupid movie.
Yeah.
Hands down the stupidest thing that happened in the movie.
Yeah.
A close second with the weird werepanther things at the refinery that were guarding Freddy's lair. The fuck was that about?
I don't know. But shout out to Clu Gallagher, by the way.
Always like to see Clu Gallagher.
Yeah, he does. I do like the relationship between him and Mark Patton in this movie, and it's one of those cute little gem things. Even the mom, Hope Lang, she's really good as well. So shout out to them. But I'm sorry, I've interrupted.
I was just saying. In a ludicrous movie, those were particularly ludicrous things.
Yeah. But it goes against the whole setup of what Nightmare was.
Yeah. So that's right. Anything that you're going to enjoy in this movie, and I'm not saying that there's not things to enjoy.
Yeah.
Are unrelated.
Yeah.
To Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
For a long time, this was my very least favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Yeah. I don't think it is my very least favorite anymore.
Yeah.
But I just don't want this new revisionist, aw shucks, this is kind of accidentally hilarious, everybody should find this lost treasure movie to fool anybody into thinking that it represents what we're talking about when we talk about Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Because in that level it fails. And again, I guess we can blame the screenwriter for all of this. It's a possession movie. It's a haunting movie. It's a psychological horror movie. And great, if that's the movie you want to make that movie.
Yeah.
That's just not what I identify with Nightmare on Elm Street.
I think it was almost... We've talked about, at least I have, the perfect storm to create something that is memorable, whether it's bad or good memorable, where... We had this idea where Chaskin was going to create this possession movie with this gay subtext, and other people latched on to that idea and made this bizarre cult homoerotic horror movie that is just undeniable. All these things that came in, the actors were in on it. Robert Englund knew, even said to the director, this is a very homoerotic scene. Can we do it with the, can I put the blade in his mouth kind of thing?
Again, in the Never Sleep Again documentary, that they were playing dumb.
Yeah.
They were saying that they had no idea.
To this day, though, and I am going off of that documentary, not Never Sleep Again, but Scream Queen, My Nightmare, Jack Shoulder maintains without a doubt that he did not know.
Yeah.
He maintained... I love Jack Shoulder, by the way. The sort of character he seems to be or is, also did The Hidden, by the way, another great 80s... classic sci-fi monster movie.
We've talked about The Hidden. You and I have talked about The Hidden on this very show.
Yeah.
I mean, again, And again, there's great sequences in the movie. Technically, the filmmaking isn't bad.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think that they cheaped out on it necessarily.
Yeah.
It just wasn't an Elm Street script. I don't know if it was because they were in such a mad hurry to get this next Elm Street out.
Yeah.
I know Bob Shea, like you said, wanted to turn this into a proper cash cow.
Yeah.
And maybe their eagerness caused them to rush the... But, I mean, the benefit is that they course correct very nicely out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, whenever I hear the discussion about the movie, it's not about any of the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff. So that's what I'm going to try and make it about here today.
Okay.
One other criticism, though, the
It's
actress who plays the girlfriend, who's got the weird Meryl Streep face.
Kim Myers.
I don't know if it's just the voice or if it's she's got this. Oh no, mine. He's kind of just delivery, you know. But Jesse, Jesse,
I love you, Jesse.
I love you, Jesse. Oh, like, really? I mean, she should be driving him into the arms of this boy.
Where most would just not only just run.
She's supposed to be this lure that defeats his evil, forbidden quote gayness.
I don't buy it.
Right? And
I don't.
Not for a second. There's no chemistry between them. Yeah. Like I don't think they disliked each other, but they weren't comfortable kissing each other. It was just there's no heat there at all. And like that was supposed to be the turn. Like she kisses Freddy and like he erupts back out and becomes himself. Yeah. And then presumably is arrested for all the murders that he committed.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that he's getting away, especially with his guy, the guy who got killed when the parents were on the other side of the door. Yeah. Yeah, Jesse killed our son. He's done. He's going to jail. Yeah, I don't know. The book-ending bus thing. At the end, we have Freddy's glove erupting out of this woman's chest. They're talking about it. I also think it's hilarious that they're going to school the next day. Yeah. I guess that does happen in Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. Like, Nancy's traumatized by the death of her best friend. The next day, she's back in school, no problem. Yeah. But, yeah, there's this exchange that happens on the bus. Jeremy mentioned it when we reviewed it before, where they're talking about, great party last night. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Yeah. I'm sorry, but at least 30 people got killed. Yeah. That was a straight-up massacre. That wasn't an embarrassing birthday party.
3, I think it reached double digits anyways.
30, I meant. Yeah. But, like, damn.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then, again, much like the first movie, Freddy's still alive. Scary. Yeah. But as much as that seems like a cop-out, as I was sort of complaining about the first movie's ending being kind of bleh. Yeah. I like the bus sequence at the beginning and the end because those two sequences were the two sequences of the movie that felt like Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. Watch this movie for every reason except for that it's a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Yeah. Like, again, I'm recommending the movie for its 80s kitsch and no other reason. Yeah. Lou Gallagher's in it. He's a mainstay staple of the 80s, you know. Yeah. There is Freddy Krueger, and he was in a lot of lunchboxes, but this is not an Elm Street movie, damn it.
Yeah, I know.
It just isn't.
I know.
It's fun to watch.
It is.
It's stupid and ludicrous.
Yes, I love the fact that they have a game called Probe in
his room.
The closet.
Again, like the set, the cast, the clothes, everything seemed just accenting this. Yeah. And like, I think it's more embarrassing. I guess I have to believe Jack Shoulder. Because at this point, it would be more embarrassing to admit that you didn't know that this was happening.
Well,
like, seriously?
Once again, going off that other documentary, he sort of comes across as this, get it. Let's get in. Let's get the shot. This part of the movie doesn't make any sense. I don't care.
It's a for hire job. Is it in focus? Is it in frame? Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah, he's like that Kaufman guy, the Toxic Avenger, right. Lloyd Kaufman. So, no, I love me some Jack Shoulder.
Again, there's talent in the movie too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like I was being mean to that one actress. I don't even necessarily think she's bad. It's just like a Fran Drescher, Rosie Perez thing. Yeah, there was something about her voice that was really grating to me, and that's unfortunate, but it's just true.
It's not Kate Capshaw bad, but it's like that.
It's there. It's somewhere in there.
Indy!
Oh, Indy! Oh. I don't like Freddy's Revenge. Yeah. Nobody likes Freddy's Revenge, Willie. So once upon a time, we were doing ranks of the best movies of the 80s. And because like I didn't want to cop out and like do ties or whatever, I ranked Nightmare on Elm Street. I think it was 4th or something like that. And I sort of said, I almost feel like I should be putting Nightmare on Elm Street 3 here. Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 3 make such a complete piece together. Like I said, it gives Elm Street the good ending that it deserved. And it really utilizes the dream world in a way that every subsequent sequel is going to largely fail to do for me. And I think most smartly, and I think the thing that really set a fire in kids' imaginations and maybe why Freddy ended up on lunchboxes and why the next movie was the most profitable of the entire franchise, it empowers the kids. No longer are you helpless in your dreams. The big secret twist is that if you can lucid dream, if you can harness your dream, if you can control your dreams, in theory, you're every bit as powerful as Freddy. Because in the dream world, anything is possible. That's true for Freddy, but while you're dreaming, it's also true for you. What kind of epic dreamscape battles could unfold in this world? Well, let's ask Chuck Russell and Frank Darabont, who brought us the remake of The Fly subsequently to this. And I believe collaborated on the sequel. They wrote the sequel to The Fly. The Eric Stoltz Son of the Fly, whatever version. Before Darabont really secured his legit filmmaker status with Shawshank Redemption, a lot of his work was in B movies. And it was every bit as excellent as his subsequent work would be, as far as I'm concerned. Whereas I complained about Part 2 abandoning everything that I thought was great and imaginative and deep about Nightmare on Elm Street, this movie takes advantage of it and even expands the mythology. Freddy Krueger being the son of 1,000 maniacs, that's Dream Warriors. And Heather Langenkamp comes back to finish the story and Nancy's sort of saga. And she comes in as sort of the person to teach these kids how to fight Freddy. She situates herself as the Gandalf sort of character and necessarily dooms herself. But when I watched this as a kid, I didn't understand narrative structure in that way. So when, spoilers kids, when Nancy got it at the end of the movie, my mind was legit fucking blown. Like, I kept on waiting for that scene where Nancy was going to be alive.
And nope.
It was if they were going to kill someone from the previous movie, they do it in the first reel, right? It's like the kill before the opening credits, usually. So this movie embraced all the things that we loved about Nightmare on Elm Street, and to me, at least in my young kid mind, broke some rules. As well as, if the first movie ignited my imagination, this one just kicked down all the doors. Now, what a Nightmare on Elm Street movie could be was, who knew?
If you're gonna kill your main heroine, and I'm looking at you, Halloween franchise, you got to do it the way they did it.
Make it count.
Make it count. And they did it in A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. You feel it. A lot of people went, damn.
But again, like from a story structure place, she was a safe character for us, right? Everybody felt safe when Nancy was around. She knew everything about Freddy. She knew how to deal with Freddy. She knew how to protect the kid.
You felt secure. Like, all of a sudden, it wasn't just a horror movie. This was a action sci-fi movie. I actually think this is the first X-Men movie before anyone else knew how to do it.
It does sort of feel like kids sort of learning their power. Or embracing their power, whatever that would be. Again, choose your metaphor. And
this is why I'm somewhat excited about the New Mutants. I'm thinking in some ways this could be the next Dream Warriors, but hey, that's a different theory.
Well, here's hoping. I'm not as anything that's in development hell that long. But anyway, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. There's what we find out to be a group of the, quote, last of the Elm Street children. So presumably the last of the children of the group of parents who were involved in the murder of Freddy Krueger have all ended up in this psychiatric facility / sleep study
Yes.
A new doctor has come to take care of them because
Yep.
they've noticed the symptom of the dreams being
Yep.
similar.
And sorry to interrupt, and shame on us. Also, I'm kind of glad Bob Shaye and Wes Craven, kiss and made up and come back, because in a lot of ways, like, we have to give also him credit for this.
For the premise, absolutely, yeah.
Well, he's also producer, man. Like,
Yeah.
he was here from conception. So.
Right. No, Freddy Krueger's his dude. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Credit where credit is due.
Okay. There is no credit through Wes, so I just had to stand up.
Right. Big love to Wes Craven. If it sounds like I'm shortchanging Wes, I do not mean to shortchange Wes.
We were just coming to the whole sleep therapy thing.
Yeah.
That's Wes's idea.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
so
I'm
how
a
are we
bully.
going to treat, and why is the nightmare the thing that these kids are the most scared of, and like why are these kids all, quote, committing suicide and suffering from anxiety and depression, right?
Yeah.
They're having a hard time getting their head around the fact that it's a dream demon, and
Yeah.
they're still existing in the real world.
Yeah.
So much to like here. All of the kids are introduced in a very natural way. We have a new arrival in Patricia Arquette.
Yep.
So she gets a walk and talk through the facility. This is this character, and that's their thing.
Yeah.
This kid is in a wheelchair, and he likes Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
And this kid's kind of a comedian, and he makes puppets.
Yep.
And this girl is an ex-junkie who's trying to make a better life for herself.
Jennifer Rubin, shout
Yeah.
out, Canadian talent, by the way.
Gotta love that character. That was one of the ones that hurt for me watching it. I never liked seeing that character go when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I kind of
Yeah.
liked her. Anyway,
Shout out to Jennifer Rubin, by the way. No one ever shouts her out.
no, it's always good to see her.
80s scream queen in a lot of ways.
And it's always nice to see her.
Yeah.
Kincaid, another fan favorite.
Yeah.
And was it Billy, the kid who won't talk?
Yes. Joey.
Joey, not Billy. Sorry, thank you.
Sorry.
Joey, the kid who doesn't talk.
Yeah.
So the setup and the walk and talk, really, we have the opening dream sequence with Patricia Arquette. Here's our new protagonist. This is the dream. Her wrists are cut by Freddy in the dream, but it looks like to her mother. She's attempted suicide.
Yeah.
Off to the hospital she goes.
Yeah.
And right away, we like these kids. Right away, we understand the danger they're in.
Yep.
And the visual spectacle of the movie is good. The dream sequences are really like out there, Grand Guignol. Like
This was cutting edge stuff at the time that it was being shown in a lot of ways.
that kid being turned into a living puppet.
Yeah.
With his veins as the strings.
Yeah.
Is a hard watch to this day.
Bravo.
And he's one of the first people to go, and right away, like they
Once
do a really
again,
good
Chuck
job.
Yeager, man, or Chuck? No. Go. Sorry.
We like that kid right away, and even though we don't have a lot of time with him,
Yeah.
it kind of hurts to see him go. And all
Yeah.
of the other kids witness it. They break the glass, but there's a cage in front of it, and they're just shouting at him, trying to wake him up as he's right at the edge of the drop. And the stakes are set up. And then Nancy shows up, and then, administrative difficulties, and this mysterious ghostly nun who keeps showing up to give some
That's right. We get the
exposition.
introduction of the backstory here as well.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on, and it's very efficiently told, visually mesmerizing. Like you say, Patricia Arquette's first performance, we get to see Larry Fishburne as a nurse in a small sort of supporting capacity in the movie.
Yep.
It's much... it just feels like a much cleaner movie than Part 2 in a lot of ways, too. It just...
Yeah.
The production of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that they spent more money, or just maybe was that they were less at a dead run while they were shooting it. Really, my big complaint when I was a kid is that, like, the kids are given their powers, and then a lot of them are almost immediately killed, and that always bothered me. But, I mean, it also makes sense, too. Just because you understand the key to beating Freddy, your first at-bat shouldn't be getting in the ring with Freddy, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, you're going right to the Grandmaster.
That's
yes.
right.
I want to do a course correction, by the way, and I'm terribly sorry for interrupting. It wasn't Chuck, it was Kevin Yeager. So for all the sort of special effects.
Who did the effects for 2 as well, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, Kevin Yeager, by the way. So
Right.
sorry, folks. I just, we want to be professionals, get things right.
Other than maybe some of the Dream Warriors getting killed off faster than I would like it to, there's just nothing that I didn't love about the movie as a kid, and I've never really changed my mind on it. So, where do you land? I'm like...
I love it. I love it. This was one of the first Wes Craven movies I saw at Place Real Theaters. They did I saw it at the Waskasoo movie theater way back in the day. They did a retro showing of it. And weird side note, you could actually buy that movie theater now if you want, ladies and gentlemen. So those listening to it, save that movie theater. It's a classic. But no, I love it. I take it almost like it's a nightmare movie. Clearly a nightmare movie. This is also the start of the whole, wisecracking, one-liner Freddy's. This is when this really shows up, for good or ill, if you want to say.
He starts punctuating things with bitch a little bit.
Time.
Yeah, and Welcome to Primetime, Bitch was the big sort of laugh line of the movie, and that is an unfortunate, and it ended up being an unfortunate thing. It's a great moment in the movie. This woman who wants to be a star,
TV personality,
staying up all night watching TV, watching lame interviews. Yeah. She falls asleep watching TV, very believable, and first the TV glitches out, then Freddy erupts and literally smashes her face through the screen.
Yeah.
It was a great moment punctuated by Welcome to Primetime, Bitch, right?
Yeah.
But everybody would quote that out of the theaters, and some producer somewhere clocked that.
Yeah.
So when they were making 4 or 5 forward, Freddy's got to have a zinger. Henceforth, Freddy's got to not just kill them, he's got to make fun of them while he kills them, and he's got to be, quote, funny.
Yeah.
And it works in this movie because they don't oversalt, but I think going forward, they kind of overpour.
Yeah. I take it as a great adult comic book movie where the big sort of Magneto character is Freddy Krueger and all the rest are sort of X-Men characters. I don't know why I get sort of obsessed with this sort of connection with X-Men and Dream Warriors 3, but really that's how I kind of take it. It's a comic book movie in a lot of ways with great horror ideas.
I don't think they would have approached it that way, but it's similar in its structure. Yeah. I've said this before of lots of movies like that movie, The Eye.
Yeah.
Where, she gets an operation after her eye vision's gone and suddenly she can see dead people. It's like the origins of a superhero.
Yeah.
It's sort of a similar idea.
Yeah.
Really memorable stuff coming out of here. There was a famous Freddy prop, like a giant Freddy snake.
Yeah.
That tries
Which
to
is
devour.
A great special effect, by
and
the way.
again, another one of those crazy dream things that doesn't make sense when you describe it, but while you're having the dream. Apparently, the original design of it, that was more flesh-toned, was so penis-like
That's
as
right.
to make people
I remember
super uncomfortable. So, they did an on-set quick paint job and tried to shoot it from different angles to make it less look like this woman was being eaten by a giant dick.
That would make the Nightmare series probably the greatest homosexual horror series. It would be. It would outgay the Chucky
In that
franchise.
context, I wouldn't say homosexual at all. She's feared of the male genitalia, right? It's a female character.
I guess
right?
so, but just. All right, let's not make this.
It's but anyway, a very phallic image.
But you have to admit, if they went with that.
But to me, the effect that's always the most disturbing to me is like the little yum mouths that show up on Jennifer Rubin's arm. She was a junkie. Yeah. And Freddy turns his fingers into needles. Yeah, she looks at her arms, and the track marks on her arms have turned into little mouths, making these yummy really disturbing. When I watched it as a kid, I didn't really understand the concept of a junkie, even like needle drugs. The whole idea was foreign to me. Yeah. So it just read as mainly absurd or abstract to me. But man, did that stick with me. I loved this movie, but I kind of hated that scene because those little mouths creeped me out, and I didn't like seeing her die because she was cool. Yeah. I almost wish the Patricia Arquette character died and she lived for me. Yeah. But.
Yeah. No, there's some pretty awful deaths in this movie. We've already talked about the puppet one. Hers is pretty bad. The wizard, I think he gets cut.
He just gets stabbed in the heart with the glove. But again, he wolfs out, gets to be the wizard, hurts Freddy just for a second, and then gets overconfident and takes the glove to the heart.
Yeah, right. I love that they give a lot more to John Saxon as well. Yeah. And who's the other actor, by the way?
I saw this guy in a Bigfoot movie once.
He's in that movie Ghost Story a long time ago.
And I recognized him from this, but
Craig Wasson. He's also in that Brian De Palma movie. Not his Body Doubles. Anyways,
Okay, Craig Wasson is the guy we're talking about anyway. I've bumped into him a few times before. He's sort of like one of those guys. One of those guys.
Yeah.
And he gets tied up with the story of like Freddy Krueger's mom and this what turns out to be super twist ghost, teaching him Freddy's backstory and telling him to find Freddy's remain and give it a proper Christian burial.
Yeah.
Another thing that I love about this movie that like people argue dates the movie or stands out as being strange, the stop motion skeleton.
Yeah, that's
like
badass.
The weird like Harryhausen thing. The skeleton looks great. It's the blue screen stuff that actually like sell. Same thing. I find the same thing actually in like the Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. It's not the stop motion that looks weird. It's the integration of the actual actor that gives away the gag.
Yeah.
But I just love stop motion, and I love that they decided to go that way, and they didn't have to, and they just embraced it.
There was a lot of good ideas put into this script, like a lot, like even like just the overall narrative. But I agree, like that whole idea of making it all like the whole Harryhausen tribute. To the 7 Voyages of Sinbad. That special effects. That was
the only thing in the movie that's done with that style of effect.
Yeah.
And again, I think the thing that's weird about it is that this is one of the things that's quote happening in the real world.
Yeah.
John Saxon and Wasson have come to find Freddy's body in this junkyard and bury it.
Yeah.
And the bones sort of form together.
Yeah.
And in a dream sequence, we might be more accepting of it.
Yeah.
But I just love that style of animation, and I just thought again good call.
Yeah. No. I was like chin. Yes.
Even its little victory thing that it does after
I remember that. Yeah, that was a nice touch.
Throws his hands in the air, and then all the bones fall into a pile. It's well done. It's fun.
Yeah,
like it's controversial, and especially like it feels like I'm contradicting myself because I didn't include it in my '80s list. But to me, my love for Elm Street 3 might be greater than my love for Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
But I really do see them as two pieces of one sort of epic horror movie.
Yeah.
Elm Street 1 and 3 are as good as Elm Street gets. And I suspect as good as it will ever get.
Yeah. Special shout out to that scene, by the way. And it's got a great opening sequence, even with the sort of building of the popsicle stick straw house. Where she's running on that sort of bed. Patricia Arquette is running away from Freddy. I think it's a hallway, and she starts running on that whole bed of flesh. She gets caught in it somehow. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
So,
yeah. I thought that's taken from a lot of people have that dream where you're trying to run away and you're not. Yeah, like that was a horrifying...
It's like running through mud. I don't have that. Sometimes I feel like I need to defend myself in a dream, and I want to punch somebody or push somebody away. And just as I try to do it, I just have no strength in my arms. I just weak.
Yeah.
I'm not up to the defense.
Yeah.
So I think I've been pretty thorough in my praise. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors.
Yeah.
It completes Nightmare on Elm Street, and in that way it doesn't have the flaw that Nightmare on Elm Street does, which is arguably the ending. Like we said, the movie's so good that we forgive the ending, and it's still a quote classic horror movie.
Yeah.
But this movie rises to meet it. And they didn't throw in the towel. They didn't look at number 2 and say, "Oh, they've already shot the bed. Why bother?"
Yeah.
No, they really put a lot of time, energy, effect, and imagination into making an epic fantasy horror
Apparently
movie.
It was a very difficult shoot.
Well, it must have been. They were really ambitious. A lot of huge effects, and New Line was still they put money into it because that was their cash cow. But I don't think they were.
Yeah, they weren't like Fox or Paramount. They were the little engine that could. No, I have nothing but mad love for Nightmare on Elm Street 3. I think it's, to me, one of the best comic book horror movies ever made. I'm trying to think. We've already talked about Lawrence Fishburne, have we not?
Yeah, I mentioned that he was in it.
Yeah, and also this is Patricia Arquette's first movie. No, I have nothing but mad love for the Dream Warriors.
It's hilarious how much you sing on my podcast.
I know.
I have to I might have to put a compilation together sometime of how often you will sing.
I do.
Do you have a secret desire? Are you going to be a pop star in the wings?
No.
We all have
do.
dreams.
I know, but I do.
In your dreams, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Dream Warriors taught me that.
Yeah, I just think to all the Dokken fans out there.
Dokken. As
Dokken,
relevant
Dokken?
today.
Sorry,
was it Dokken or Dog?
I think it's Dokken.
As relevant today as they were in 1986.
They're still together, by the way. I actually checked that.
They probably played Dream Warriors every Friday and Saturday night since 1986.
Can you imagine that some kid's bar mitzvah? Just so sad.
They're still working.
Yeah. Hey, they're doing what they love. They're doing what they love.
Do you know what terror is?
Hello.
Do you live here?
Nobody lives here.
Real terror. How long has it been since you've been on Elm Street? Welcome to a brand new nightmare. He is the first in fear.
I'm weirdly a defender of Rennie Harlan.
Yeah,
like
I
not all of the movies that he's done have been great, but almost all of the movies he's done have been entertaining.
Yeah.
Like I've said before, Cliffhanger's not a great movie, but it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
We completely like way oversold Deep Blue Sea on our shark episode.
But did we, Larry? Did we really?
He was very literally a starving artist at this point, and he landed the gig to direct.
I'm also a big defender of The Long Kiss Goodnight, by the way.
As most people should be.
Yeah.
He was a starving artist, and he was lucky to get this gig.
Yeah. Apparently he hounded them, too.
Well, he really wanted the job and like needed it. He was out of money.
Yeah.
He went from being like filthy and living in squalor after directing this movie to being offered to direct the next Die Hard film. Like this movie changed his world.
Yeah.
And it's a well-made movie, and it has great sequences in it. And God, does it piss me off. This was the first like Alien 3 thing for me when I was like Alien killed some sacred characters off before the opening, during the opening credits, like with indifference. And for me, the big hill to get over is the wholesale execution of the surviving Dream Warriors in the first third of this movie.
Yeah.
I know like they needed to pass the baton forward, and they weren't going to repeat the cast, and it's a horror movie, so that's the easy thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
But man, as a kid, and even to this day, does that seem like wasted potential?
Yeah.
Like they could have, or if you're going to kill them, at least do it like they killed Nancy. Make it count. Do it through the story. Don't just wipe them off the board and start over, which is exactly what happens here.
Yeah.
Other than Kirsten giving her powers to our new protagonist, they die like punks.
Yep.
And ironically, Kincaid was originally supposed to die in 3, and they decided, no, we like Kincaid. Let's save him. Let's keep him around.
Yeah.
And then he dies insta-kill in the next movie. It's fucking...
Maybe kill one, don't kill all of them.
Yeah. It really did put a bad taste in my mouth to the point, like, I didn't like the movie. But here's the thing. Looking at it now and getting over that hump and just watching it as another installment of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Does it use the dream world? Yes, it does, in an imaginative way. It's not all just a chick in a boiler room, as I keep saying.
Yeah.
Is there imagination in it? Yes. Is it well directed? Yes.
Yeah.
Rennie Harlan knows what the fuck he's doing, and he's doing a special effects extravaganza again at a dead run on a low budget.
Yeah.
There's some really great stuff in the movie.
Yeah.
I can't help but be a little bit disappointed, and it's not 100% there. It's the most successful movie, like financially, by far, but it's at least a full letter grade down from Dream Warriors. At least. At least. You know, it's a fun enough watch, and Freddy kills some dumb teenagers, but by the time we get into the nuts and bolts with the new cast and new kids, my arms were folded and I was frowning at the movie. And on some level, I never completely got over it.
Yeah.
But the movie is better than that review would suggest.
Yeah.
That's where I start.
They should have waited to make this movie. I know it was sort of, a cash cow, you got to pump them out. But there was enough goodwill with number 3 to bring in. One of the first mistakes is they had to recast. Apparently, we don't know the reason why, but Patricia Arquette wasn't going to return for number 4. I possibly scheduling, whatever, but she wasn't a huge actor at that point. So
whatever reason, she wasn't coming back.
Yeah, when she's not busy, bring her in. It's always sad and that's the same problem with Halloween in a lot of ways, when they couldn't get Danielle Harris to reprise her role. The continuity is off. It's not the same.
We have somebody else playing Kirsten for the first few scenes, and it's so clearly not Patricia Good. I'm not saying hire a doppelganger, but no one's being fooled by this, you know?
Yeah. Even when they're trying to force that whole, hey, we've been friends for a long time.
Kristen got transferred to a different school, and now we have, Kincaid and Bill. What's his face?
Yeah.
Joey.
Yeah. No. It feels rushed, and I think they even ran out of money at one point.
Well, like towards the end of it, like they were struggling to finish shots on time. I can't remember on the documentary, they said like they stopped when they finally stopped production or were stopped production. There was just under 3 months to release.
Oh wow!
And the poster was made and designed by the time that they were starting shooting. Like the poster art was already printed.
Wow.
The date of release was started. That's when the whole movie was made at a dead run, and that didn't help it. Some people, you know,
had to wait.
Sometimes people, exceed or strive through adversity. But again, first project, Freddy Krueger, coming off the back of a great success. You're right. Ease into it. Take a breath. Take a breath. The people will wait a year. People will like.
They would. If you build it, they will come.
So what does work? Well, our main character Alice now gets the powers of the Dream War. So she has a little bit more agency in fighting Freddy, and as her other friends,
we've given the legend of the Dream Master. More of this universe is opened up.
But as her other friends are being killed off, and Freddy's absorbing their powers, presumably she's sort of the, quote, good version of Freddy. She's also seems to be getting the effect of her friends and her brother and her other people's skills. There's a really kind of funny scene where she's practicing with nunchucks, where the cutting to the back and to the actual actress, like, there's no way she's any good with nunchucks at all. The awkwardness with which she's handling the nunchucks to the reverse shot when it's like ninja shit going on is kind of unintentionally hilarious to me.
They just shouldn't have bothered. They should just admit it and get like some African American man in the back shot and just like that. That would have been perfect. Please. Anyways, sorry, I digress.
And they start down the path that you'll see where, and the ironic kill, like in, I don't know, there's that prom night movie, the girl who drinks a lot gets a beer bottle shoved down her throat, right? A girl with asthma sucks face with Freddy, right? Like they kind of use the ironic fates start being poured into this movie. This is where that becomes a little bit more.
I enjoyed the little Kafka reference with the cockroach.
That is the most disgusting sequence of the movie by a
Bravo, though. Like, bravo. Just the idea and concept and execution. I do love that sequence.
And I'm not sure. Like, in my head, it seems like every one of the movies going forward has one particular kill. That's, like, particularly nasty and FX heavy. That's sort of like... there's all these kill centerpieces, but there's sort of the one... The puppet kill in part 3 is that to me. And I think that this bug kill that was the attempted one in this, and the next movie, the chick with the eating issues.
They all start to bleed together.
4 and 5 again hold hands in a way that 1 and 3 do, and that they're directly connected with characters still crossing over through to them. And there are little beats that work. I kind of like that moment where her brother sticks his head out and says hi during the funeral.
Yeah, that was good too.
Just a surreal little moment like that works. There's stuff that works in the movie, and like the woman's afraid of cockroaches, and so like there's a lot of ways to go with that. They're going to incorporate bugs into her death, but there's a lot of ways that you can go with the cockroach thing. And I was thinking like Creepshow.
Sure.
Or like, Freddy will turn into a big bug.
Yeah.
No. She turns into a bug.
Yeah.
And like the way her arms snap back and the worms come out of it, and it's a really slow process, and then she just gets squished by a bug with Freddy.
Yeah.
Like, again, I love the imagination of that.
Bravo.
Scene.
Yeah.
And like there's just the special effects. Where did you land on the acting?
Well, our original Dream Warriors were fine. Kincaid. And,
they're returning yet. They're definitely more comfortable in front of the camera now and grown a little bit more grown up.
Yeah.
I'm sort of up and down on Alice. I think weirdly that actress is significantly better in the next movie than
I agree.
She is in this.
Agree. She seems to be learning the ropes here.
Yeah. She's not bad. It's sort of a similar Nancy thing to me.
Yeah.
Although she kind of improves her name. Heather Langenkamp sort of always remains Heather Langenkamp to me.
Yeah.
There's just something about her delivery and the way there she is.
Yeah,
it's fine, but I'm not like, wow, she completely disappeared into it for me.
Yeah.
In this movie, like, she's adequate. In the next movie, I actually think
she's also very timid. That's why.
Yeah. Well, and weirdly, she has more of an arc in this movie than she does in that one. But maybe she's just more comfortable once she's leveled up.
Yeah.
That might be it. She doesn't like playing the meek and the mild. But
Yeah.
once she gets her power, once she gets her agency, and once she can, like, punch back, then she gets energized. And so in the next movie, when Freddy comes back, she sort of comes out swinging in that way.
Yeah. I also like what they do with the father. I mean, it's kind of comes full circle in number 5. And I know it's sort of a cheesy, stereotypical role. Do you think he's an alcoholic because he's somewhat connected with killing Freddy at all, or who knows?
Well, not canonically, because we were told implicitly that in Dream Warriors they were the last of the Elm Street children. So at this point, Freddy's just killing Elm Street kids because that's what he did when he was regular Freddy.
Okay.
As far as I remember. I'm sorry. I'm getting confused again. This is the one that has the time loop sequence in it.
Yes, that's right. That was a pretty good, cool idea.
No, I really like that idea, and it's another dream thing.
Yeah.
Apparently, I've never had that, but apparently time loops or time sinks
is a common thing.
Is a common thing in dreams, or people who are tripping balls or whatever that. They just get stuck in one thing and can't get their head out of it.
Yeah.
And Freddy abusing that to buy himself some time, I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah. It makes him more cunning.
Yeah.
Side note, though, I really hated how Freddy came back in this movie. It seemed like a slap in the face.
That's the dog too.
That's
takes
the
a
dog.
piss.
Yeah, Kincaid's dog comes out and just bites Kincaid, and then up and like lifts and pisses out fire.
And as far as I know, it's never explained.
Yeah.
Like why he came back and how that was the way he just needed.
Yeah.
The ground was consecrated for so long, but
yeah.
somehow the dog peeing there deconsecrated. There was no explanation given or offered or ever attempted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Thanks, jerks.
Yeah. No.
I definitely get how people saw that Rennie Harlan was a talent that needed to, get work, and like, I get that it was a big box office hit. I do think it owes a lot of its success from the goodwill that came off of the back of Part 3.
Mm-hmm.
And people really like this movie. I mean, I'm harder on the movie than most people are, to be honest.
Okay.
But again, just don't do that. Don't do if you really have to kill off beloved characters for whatever reason, because you're losing an actor or because you want to pass the torch.
Yeah.
At least do the fans the service of making those deaths count.
Yeah.
Like giving them some real purpose. You know. They already
even Joey goes out as a punk.
I thought it was kind of funny that once again Joey's lure had to do with titty.
Yeah.
In the third movie, he gets lured by a sexy nurse in Freddy form, and in this one, he has a very literal wet dream on his waterbed.
Right, I remember this now. Yes.
Anyway, it does what we want a Nightmare on Elm Street movie to do. It gets the job done. But like I said, the first third of the movie is a hard sit for people who really love the Dream Warriors.
Yeah.
If you're in it for the special effects and seeing Freddy do his thing and the cheesy Freddy one-liners, which are on full fucking display now.
Yeah, no, these are some of the best.
And where they get that wasn't funny or close to funny. Mm-hmm. Was it even funny in the room? Are they giving him these lines because it's funny because it's not funny after a point?
Yeah.
Welcome to Prime Time, bitch might still be his best one. And they keep trying. They just keep trying. But I will, instead of being angry like I was when I was a kid, I will just call it adequate. That's where I watch up at 4 now.
No, I agree with you. There is some sort of disappointment that it didn't have quite the same fun even that number 3 had.
Yeah.
But it's Rennie Harlan.
Yeah. Thank you, Rennie.
His mother was a God-fearing woman. His birth was an unspeakable horror.
Please don't let him do that!
His life and death have been one incredible nightmare. But now all that is going to change because Freddy wants to become a daddy.
Want to make babies?
What's wrong with me? You're just a little pregnant.
Even if he has to adopt.
No! Do unborn babies dream?
When it comes to chills.
It happened while I was awake.
When it comes to screams.
The party just start.
When it comes to pure terror.
Bon appetit.
No one delivers like Freddy.
Better buckle up.
All right, Krueger. This time it's for keeps.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 5. The Dream Child.
It's a boy.
When it comes to terror, remember, Freddy knows best.
Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child.
Yeah.
Directed by Stephen Hopkins. And Stephen Hopkins is a sad story, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
His entire career is almost built of films that are almost but not quite.
Yeah.
Like, is Judgment Night a good movie? Almost, but not quite. Is Blown Away a good movie? Almost, but not quite. Is Predator 2 a good movie? Almost, but not quite. It's his fucking life's work. Other than Lost in Space, which is just wall-to-wall fucking terrible. Is Ghost in the Darkness a good movie? Almost, but not quite. So,
Lost in Space.
Guess, I just mentioned that. Guess how I feel about this movie. Is Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, a good movie? Almost, but not quite.
Yeah. Where did it go wrong?
Well, I mean, it does a good job of, like, successfully bridging from the previous movie. We still have Alice and her boyfriend, so bland that I don't remember his name over 2
Johnny
movies.
Football. Yeah.
The jock guy.
Yeah.
She's pregnant. She's outside of high school, and she's starting to deal with the adult world.
Yeah.
And Freddy seems to be coming back. She feels it, like something's going on.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know quite where it is. And the smart play is that, unlike the previous movie, the way Freddy gets back in, the sneaky backdoor way he gets in, is that he's actually initially not fucking with Alice.
Yeah.
He's fucking with her baby.
Yeah.
And put that with like the anxiety of what pregnancy must be, the physical horror. You could have. There's a lot of stuff they can do with that.
Yeah.
But they kind of miss the potential of that, both the fear of pregnancy and motherhood, and the absolute horror of like that seed being perverted by something evil.
Yeah.
And then Freddy becoming this de facto father figure to this kid, but before he's actually born.
Yep.
Interesting ideas, unfortunate execution. Don't like to be mean to child actors. Wasn't buying the child actor kid a lot in the movie. And it almost became more about the kid than it did about Alice.
Yeah.
Instead of Alice getting, like, leveling up again and taking ownership and, like, you're not the kid's father. I'm the kid's father. You killed that kid's father.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the kid's mother. I felt like it should be Alice's story to me.
Yep.
And it's her unborn kid's story. Which in a way I guess is fair because Freddy attacked the kid first.
Yeah.
But, like, we don't have access to the kid. He's about a clump of cells at this point when we first meet him, right?
Yeah.
This is some sort of dream projection of what presumably he will look like when he's, I don't know, 7 or 8.
Yeah.
But we get lost in the mud of this.
Yeah.
So that ends up not working for me.
Yeah.
But there's some really cool sequences in it.
Yep.
When her boyfriend, spoilers, gets killed off by getting turned into this man-machine hybrid motorbike that crashes. Ugly, painful, and we've been with this guy for a movie already. So, and again, unlike the Dream Warrior ones, he just found out that he was a new father, and he was rushing to, warn his girlfriend or try to protect her, and he has this terrible death.
Yeah.
It counts.
Yeah.
It's like an oh shit. It's not like the inevitable thing we have to kill him to get off the board. Like, this counts a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a great sequence in a movie theater where she gets sucked into the screen and everything goes black and white, and like the visual aesthetic of things like this, like
the
isolated sequences
is good too.
I like the concept of it too. I felt like we were robbed of the violence of the scene.
Yeah.
And again, we have this horrifying sequence where this woman is fed to herself.
Yeah.
Like, first she's force-fed, and then
Yeah.
she's basically starting to be fed herself.
Yeah.
And again, it's another character. We don't have a lot of time with her, but we kind of like Greta when we meet her.
Yeah.
And, like, she's a spoiled kid, but she's not like a Paris Hilton type. She's got layers, and then she chokes to death at the family dinner, but we know it was Freddy. That was a good sequence. And, I kind of, those stuff work. But yeah, we got the Freddy one-liners, and then we got this sort of child acting, and the less than spectacular sort of climax to the movie.
Yeah.
Almost, but not quite.
I will say this about number 5, though. It brings the nastiness and the horror.
A little bit back, for sure.
There's that whole abortion subplot that kind of gets under your skin. At least for me, gets under your skin.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of creepy. Really bizarre opening credits, by the way. We have that lovemaking going on.
That's right.
Yeah, like it's not sexy. It's kind of weird, sweaty, ugly. Like, just even how some of the body shapes in the movie. There's one where I couldn't decide whether like that's rib or stomach. I don't know. And
Am I doing it wrong? This is totally an aside, but in a lot of movies, people seem to be caked in sweat while they're making love.
Yeah.
I don't find that often. Am I doing it wrong? I don't know.
I really don't know how to answer that.
Maybe they're just young teenagers in love. They're really committed to the bit.
Do you want me to be your sex coach then?
Yeah. This is the point where it's become a little bit easy. We know what to expect from Robert Englund.
Yeah.
And he gives us that.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
Yeah.
Nothing less.
Yeah.
The movies are, again, I guess I understand the instinct to not go way deep into the, like, pregnancy stuff.
Yeah.
Because that could get to a little bit ickier place than take some of the fun out of the movie.
Yeah.
But I don't see Freddy blanching at it. Right? Freddy's a pretty hands-on, bad, child murderer, presumably sexual predator.
Yeah.
So he won't blanch at it. So in that way, it seems a little strange.
He's actually hitting
the
below the belt. He's like going straight for the fetus. So,
yeah. But I mean, it's a tough thing. Again, the visualization of it becomes tricky too.
Yeah.
Right. We could get right down to the nuts and bolts and the plumbing. Do we want to get there? Do we want to go there? Yeah. So. I don't know. It's a tough movie for me to get my head around. Like, I like Nightmare on Elm Street as an entity. So seeing Freddy do his thing is sort of, comfort food. Like, it's watchable. It's not as, like, earth-shattering, gobsmackingly, like, insultingly awful as some of the stuff we're going to see subsequently. Yes. But it's really hard to get excited about.
It seems like the film series was exhausted. It was running on fumes, and I think they even mentioned that in the documentary that the return for this movie wasn't as strong as they hoped.
Right.
It did sort of come quickly on the heels of number 4. It felt very much rushed. Like, even from the script idea, it had some really good ideas that didn't quite gel.
So once again, just like almost if they'd waited, instead of doing it next year.
Yeah.
Give it another 12 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give it another 12 months.
Yeah, like a good glass of wine, let it breathe a little bit. They would have come back.
Right.
For Freddy. Like, if they came for 4.
Again, almost interesting thing. Another thing that I kind of thought was cool was that, like, they graduated high school and were entering the quote-unquote real world.
Yep.
So we were sort of not dealing necessarily just with, well, I guess we're still dealing with teenagers, but not the typical, we're not going to have the scene where they fall asleep in class, or the scene with the bully in the hallway, or the series is growing up a little bit with its audience. Yeah. Which is a good, like, maybe another idea. Yeah. Maybe Freddy, now that he's taking care of the Elm Street kids, maybe he doesn't have to limit himself to children. Maybe, you know, who else does he have a bone to pick with? I don't know.
But aren't they technically Elm Street kids as well, though?
They're from Elm Street. They live in that town, Springwood, as they've called it. But again, in part 3, we were told that that group was the last of the Elm Street children. So I sort of presumed going forward from that point, it was just Freddy doing his thing. Like, by the next movie, he's killed every kid in the fucking state. Right?
But
like,
they're still the last one. They lied to us.
But not every parent in the fucking city was involved in killing. So it's just, I think, the wholesale slaughter of the innocents again. Okay. He's still going to kill people, but he killed those other ones for personal reasons. Yeah. Now it's all for pleasure.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Lovely.
Yes.
I don't know. I feel like I'm doing short shrift on it, but I don't know what else to say. I don't even dislike Stephen Hopkins. Like, it was such an unflattering to be... One thing that he did do that was actually pretty decent was the Peter Sellers biopic on HBO. With, with Jeffrey Rush. Yeah. And, like, I don't think he's untalented. There's always a great sequence or two in these movies. Predator 2 has some really cool stuff in it. Yeah. As much as, like, I don't like Emilio Estevez, Judgment Night has some really cool stuff in it. Yeah. But, I don't know. Like, I've sort of been weirdly cheering for him because, like, I get that he's talented, but he just never gets the right script. And, like, he could have got the Rennie Harlan treatment, right? It must have been really exciting to get the gig after, like, Rennie Harlan. He directs The Nightmare on Elm Street, then he's, like, directing Die Hard, and the next... This is going to be my ticket in, baby.
You know what I see in your future?
What's that?
A Stephen Hopkins apology episode on Rank and Review.
Where I revisit and turns out that Blown Away isn't stupid.
I was so wrong. No. I am so sorry, Stephen.
No.
This is my love note to you.
Alas. But yeah, in the end of the day, if I'm going to watch a lame Stephen Hopkins movie, it'll probably be The Ghost in the Darkness over this.
Yeah. True story.
Good enough?
Good enough.
Has an Elm Street. No! Screaming while the bus is in motion.
It's your mind will go for it.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little soul, too. Oh, yeah.
We're gonna have to hit him with everything we've got.
Now I'm playing with power.
We're in Twin Peaks here.
It's gotta be me and him.
You want to live?
Hey, watch out! What's with kids today, huh?
Freddy's dead. The final nightmare.
Great graphics.
They've saved the best for last.
Whereas I'm having a hard time articulating how I felt about the Dream Child, like, it's kind of meh, it's kind of bland sauce or whatever. Yeah. I have no hesitation or anything like this about Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. This is a fucking garbage fire. This is an abortion. This is absolutely brutal.
You're starting
brutal.
To sweat. Ooh, you're getting...
Like, I am shocked. Yeah. And I feel bad for Rachel Talalay, however you say that name.
Rachel Talalay, I think.
Talalay. She's been working around the Nightmare on Elm Street
She came up to the company
the wings.
from the beginning, yeah.
From the very beginning, she wants to be a director, and she finally gets. We're gonna do Freddy, and this is clearly a film by committee. This is a soup of ideas and themes and tones, all thrown together, and it's shocking. The real question that I want to ask you is is this really the worst standalone entry in a franchise, or do we have to still give that prize to Halloween Resurrection? Oh, I hate even saying it. But honestly, Freddy's Dead is that bad.
Dirty.
It is Resurrection level disrespectful to the series.
I know.
That it is canon that this is how Freddy, quote, dies and is sent to hell to set up the events of Freddy versus Jason, and that no course correction has ever been done on this.
They don't even bother explaining how he comes back.
It's infuriating. The whole movie is infuriating, and it's trying to be smug, and it's trying to be funny, and worse than that, it's trying to be hip and 1990 whatever it was.
But that's the part of the problem, is that Freddy's popularity was done at that point. Like, everyone was sort of tired of Freddy, so why go to that well?
Unlikable characters, telegraphed plot twists, and you talk about overplaying your hand with like the silliness, cartoon nature. This is Freddy on a broomstick dressed like the Wicked Witch of the West, and your little soul too, and Wile E. Coyote bits where he's pushing a big rack of spikes for someone to land on as they fall out of the sky. It's embarrassing. It's fucking embarrassing. And like, even when it's trying to be all meta and funny, they're throwing a Johnny Depp cameo at you. The always relevant and never bad to have in your movie Tom Arnold and Roseanne Barr. This will always be good for our movie. And like the whole world they're creating where it's just adults, all the kids are gone, but the adults are crazy. I don't know if this is like leftovers from the era of Twin Peaks where everything needed to be weird and off, and like, I hate it. I hate it so goddamn much, Lee. It fucking infuriates me. It outsucks the remake significantly. I didn't think that going in. I didn't think that going in to rewatch this. But it abso-fucking-lutely outsucks. Is there anything in this movie that is frightening?
No.
Is there any cathartic payoff or any sort of satisfaction? Yeah, they got him. Freddy is dead. The twist of the main character being both his daughter and not the main character that we start with. Is that satisfying, or did it feel like any kind of aha?
It landed like a lead ball, really.
Fat Koda's in the movie. Not sure why. Not sure what he contributes.
Well, Lisa Zane also apparently was, kind of. I never was an L.A. Law fan, but she was.
Well, she has something to do in the movie.
That's true.
Honestly, I'm like, what is Yaphet Koda's role in the movie? I like him as an actor, but what does he contribute?
He shows up at the end, doesn't he?
Well, he's involved in the final fight, but I mean, as far as the narrative of the story, like,
nothing.
He's not helpful, particularly. It's not his movie. It's not about him.
He basically listens.
He shows up, doesn't believe, then eventually does believe, and then kind of helps out a little bit at the end. But like, the whole sequence of the video game. Now we're playing with power. Straight up embarrassing.
What's that actor's name as well? Another Canadian who dies in the video game. Breckin Meyer. Poor Breckin Meyer. Even like the sort of kiddie special effects they do with that. That's just wrong choices. Okay, here's the thing. You're making essentially a black comedy where your lead comedian is a child molesting serial killer who delivers punchlines. Did you really think that was going to work?
Also, this is on the promise of we're killing Freddy. Like, we've been here before. Jason, the Friday the 13th, the final chapter, was very clearly not the final chapter, and nobody in their hearts believed this was going to be the last Nightmare on Elm Street movie. But we're going to kill Freddy for real.
Yeah.
We're going to do a whole sequence in 3D, which is fucking awful, by the way. Like, even when it came out, by all accounts, anybody who was unlucky enough to see this in theater, everybody said that this 3D was miserable. Even on the big screen, it was miserable. I don't know what your experience of it was.
I remember thinking it was kind of cool at the time, but I mean, anything 3D to me was cool. So,
in the video transfer, in the
good.
version you watch now, you don't have the benefit of the 3D, and these like 3 worm head things that get
I thought that was ridiculous, though.
And again, it's suggested in Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah.
This is, I think they were trying to cross-pollinate the franchises with those things.
Yeah.
Man, those things explode out of Freddy, and Freddy was never really Freddy. He was these 3 little demon snake things that squirm away screaming.
Yep.
And then Freddy's head explodes, but his own head comes out of his mouth and explodes again. Like, were you guys fucking high? You were high.
Yeah.
You were high?
Yep.
How much cocaine was on that fucking set? You guys, like,
can you imagine?
It really feels like they stopped trying. That's what it feels like to me.
It feels like it's a giant comedic homage to how much Freddy Krueger was this pop culture icon. Like, this is to all the fans and to all the merchandise, who bought all the merchandise. It just feels like a bad version of the player in a lot of ways. It's just
I wasn't satisfied with the death of Freddy Krueger, and that should be a big thing. I mean, it's not the death of Han Solo or something like that, but like, make it count. If you're killing Freddy, make us go damn. Even if even if most of the rest of the movie sucks, sort of like even if like in Freddy versus Jason, I'm not saying it's true, but if I thought the rest of the movie sucked, as long as they paid off on the Freddy versus Jason fight, no one would give a fuck. And I honestly think we would have forgiven a lot if that ending actually paid off, and it was like, they dusted Freddy good and true. Well played. Not at all. Not at all.
This was an air ball from conception and throw.
And what the goofy humor makes when they try serious stuff, just be disingenuous. One of the characters has a theme of physical and sexual abuse. And like counterbalanced with Tom Arnold and Roseanne Barr being all fucking over the top and ridiculous. What's that doing there? It's kind of cool to see a flashback, I guess, of Alice Cooper as Freddy's dad.
Whipping him
and all of that. But, I mean, that's it. It's just interesting. It's not amazing. It's not awesome. And it doesn't add much to him. Freddy got beat by his dad, and he grew into liking it. Okay, sure.
I'll give Freddy's Dead this. I like the idea that Freddy has become such a problem that the government is now aware. There's a database involving Freddy, and he's being tracked, if you will.
There's a certain section of the map where all of the kids are gone.
Yeah.
And I believe it's implied that the guy in the plane, it's because he happened to fly over the airspace that Freddy was able to catch. Right?
Yeah. I do actually kind of like the idea of that opening sequence, even like the sort of falling down the hill with the opening credits. I knew we were in trouble then when that opening credits happened, and like the humor just kept on going. But I digress.
And the balance is off. Even if they were going to be bold and say, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're just making brave choices. You still need to balance it.
I know.
If you're gonna have the goofy and you're gonna have the serious, you need to measure the proportions, and it's not at all.
No.
Every scene is whatever that scene's gonna be at that moment. And again, like I said, it feels like they just gave up. This is the best we'll do for today. What are we doing tomorrow? I don't know. Nobody knows. We'll find out when we get here.
And really, like, there was enough goodwill. There was a storyline from 4 and 5. Are we made to think that the characters, like...
Presumably Alice is dead. Presumably.
See, like, no, you gotta show that. You gotta show that.
No.
Even if you didn't like 4 and 5, like, they spent enough time to have that arc. Nothing?
When you're making a Nightmare on Elm Street, who do you get your money from? What is your bread and butter? It's your fan base. What are your fan base like? What did they want out of a Nightmare on Elm Street 3? What have they admonished you for in the past? What has worked and what hasn't? And this is the last installment, presumably at that time. That's how they were treating it. however unrealistic that was.
Yeah.
That this is what they came up with
Yeah.
is the equivalent of Flemmy spitting snotty spit into the face of the fandom.
Yeah.
I can't imagine screening. This movie is bad enough. Remember, I recently reviewed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
That was shelved. It was literally going to disappear.
Yeah.
And then Matthew McConaughey and Renée Zellweger became famous.
Yeah.
So it was pulled out of its... This movie is so bad it probably shouldn't have been released. Like, I'm amazed that when they had the screening with the producers and everything like that, there wasn't like a fucking all-stop. Too much money must have been spent, but like... I'm honestly, like, I've never heard anyone defend it. I've actually heard people defend Halloween Resurrection. I've heard people defend it. They're wrong, but I've heard them defend it. I have never heard anyone defend Freddy's Dead.
Oh, I've seen the odd, online review, but they're schmucks. They're schmucks.
And like, or maybe because you saw it when you're 10.
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole generation of people who really love Dr. Giggles because it was their first horror movie.
Yeah.
Okay, great. If that was your first horror movie, okay, I guess. I'm a little sad for you, but okay.
We all have to start somewhere.
But better Dr. Giggles than Freddy's Dead. I know that I've been fucking brutal. Like, I get that. I usually try to find something good to say. Like, the closest I'll come, I guess, is that scene with Alice Cooper. But I am fucking flabbergasted.
Yeah.
I am appalled and insulted.
See,
like, I take it personal.
Yeah. No. I think the true fans would coming and going, what?
Fuck you, New Line Cinema.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Rachel Tahalha, whatever the fuck your name is.
Yeah.
Fuck you to all of the 36 writers that there must have been.
Yo.
Like, fuck all of that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And they had time. There was years before 5 and this was released.
how bad is it? I think that it's bad enough that if someone told me that there was some spiteful producer involved in it who calculated, tried to sabotage this production, I would believe it. It's so bad that I think if you hired a professional filmmaker to make a worse Nightmare on Elm Street movie, tell them when you hired them, I want a worse movie than this. Fucking Steven Spielberg couldn't do it. No living... you couldn't make a movie this bad on purpose.
Yeah.
It's a naked catastrophe. So I go back to where I started. Is it worse than Resurrection?
So, if Rachel Talalay is listening to this, Larry Parsons' email is larry.nevermind.
Oh, it's more the script than directing. I don't think it's technically necessarily that the directing is incompetent, but that's not what anybody wants from a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And if you've been working in the Nightmare on Elm Street world for as long as she had, how do you not know that?
Yep.
I'm just going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say it was too many cooks. There was a producer who insisted on this. There was a producer. We have to do the Now You're Playing with Power. That's happening. We have to do it. And I want the Wizard of Oz reference. I had this dream once where I fell out of a plane and landed on a bed of spikes. And God damn it, put it in the movie or you're fired. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. It's also acknowledging that Freddy is a movie character. It does break that fourth wall, and it just doesn't work. Just from concept and idea, just no. Is it worse than Halloween Resurrection? That's a very good question. I'm prejudiced because I have a lot more love and respect for Halloween. It's just a little more my jam in a lot of ways. With love and respect for Nightmare, I just can't. They killed Nancy the right way in number 3, where they kill the most loved character besides Michael Myers.
This is going to be controversial, and I hope it doesn't hurt your feelings, but this is my case for why Freddy's Dead is worse than Insurrection. Insurrection is...
Not Insurrection, Resurrection.
Sorry. Resurrection. I hate it so much, I don't even want to say its fucking name.
Okay. All right, we'll go with that.
I don't want anyone to confuse it with me defending.
Okay. No. I
the first 15 minutes of that movie is so nakedly insulting to fans.
Yes.
That, yes, it deserves every bit of the hate, that shit-kicking that we gave it.
Yeah.
And that ending is almost equally as offensive. That's the way. But
all
the
respect
middle,
to Wu-Tang Clan, Busta Rhymes.
Busta Rhymes, Busta Rhymes fighting Michael and that being the quote end of that series.
Yeah.
Again, nakedly offensive.
Yeah.
However,
okay.
In between that, there is a base level competent slasher movie that happens. It's irritating, and like the whole camera perspective thing pisses me off.
Yeah.
But it's superficially, there's a couple of sequences where Michael Myers kills someone and it works and it pays off in a way that you expect a Halloween movie to pay off.
Okay.
My argument is, at no point does that happen in Freddy's Dead. What scene works?
Carlo's death scene.
The guy who's deaf?
Yeah. I think that was well thought out and painful and well executed.
Something about the campiness in which Freddy's playing it. Like...
Yeah, I mean...
He's being cruel, and that's what Freddy does.
Yeah.
And he's yelling and making noise around him, and
lame.
he's deaf.
That's lame.
It's just like the bully making fun of the deaf kid, and I guess... Yeah. And I like the special effect of the ear. Like, that was really gross.
That scene works.
There, I said something positive. The special effect of the ear was good.
Yeah.
But no, how about this? Was there a thing that scared you?
No. There's nothing scary. No. But truth be told, the Nightmare films hadn't really been that scary, I think, from 4 on.
I'm like, in the Halloween movie... There are 2 parts of the movie that are like definitively the thing that makes the movie unforgivable to the fans.
Yeah.
And in Freddy's Dead, every scene's almost a tie. That ending is particularly foul to me. But this might be, for me, the worst single sequel in horror movie history. As far as being disrespectful to fans, I'm not talking about like incompetent writing or execution. I'm talking about taking everything that the fans liked and vomiting it back into the fans' faces, like with disrespect. This is what you like? Well, for shame.
Yeah.
And this wasn't somebody else who took over, this was still New Line. This was still people who'd been with it all the way along. And it's a betrayal. I
get the fact that they knew that 13-year-old kids, most likely boys, but I imagine some girls as well, but loved Freddy Krueger, and so they wanted to be a little more kid friendly. But he's a horror movie star.
I'm not naive. I get that it's product.
Yeah.
I get that it's product, but the reason the product works is that the person that you hired to make the product gives a shit, cares a little. Yeah. And by the time this movie came out...
Forget the fact that it's a product. Forget that this is a real character that came from a really good idea, a good concept that had, and it has a backstory now and everything.
It's the equivalent of you have a chocolate chip ice cream that's immensely popular.
Yeah.
And then you do a special edition where you've added maggots and cockroaches into the mix.
It's the Coke version of the horror movie genre.
It's not our fault, you guys.
Yeah.
This one's on you.
I'm doing a film about my nightmares as I'm dreaming them. In order for the movie to continue, it was dependent on me having more nightmares. Well, fortunately, I did.
I'm a little frightened by what Wes may have tapped into. I frankly felt that it was over when we did the final nightmare.
In a town where movies go over schedule and directors go over budget, something far more evil is out of control.
Let's do this.
Okay, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. There's some interesting history leading into this movie. Wes Craven was not particularly happy with the sequel chain of events to his Nightmare on Elm Street. He kind of, I think, envisioned Nightmare on Elm Street as a sort of a standalone horror movie. But because, his producer bent over backwards. Robert Shea bent over backwards to get that movie made and, wanted to franchise it so that he could turn this little up-and-coming New Line cinema into a proper Hollywood player. He understood that and played ball. But
the house that Freddy built.
Yeah, absolutely. No Freddy Krueger, no Lord of the Rings. But I do get the feeling like they kind of creatively and personally separated for a while over these Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And when Freddy's Dead properly shot the bed of the franchise,
Woo! With that,
Yeah.
That's Freddy's dead.
Robert Shea was still, he liked his golden goose, and he was going to get as many eggs out of it as he could. So he called in a meeting with Wes Craven. He sat him down in his office, apologized, gave him a huge fucking paycheck, basically, of money earned from all of the sequels to Nightmare on Elm Street, and then asked him, could you make me a Nightmare on Elm Street movie? And can you make any Nightmare on Elm Street movie you want to do? In a way, I kind of feel like they mended fences, and both got what they wanted. Rob Shea got another Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and Wes Craven got to do a Nightmare on Elm Street movie that he felt was a worthy sequel to Nightmare on Elm Street. All this is prologue leading up to this movie. We're talking about the new Nightmare, but I thought it was interesting to give that context.
Yeah.
1994, I don't think you can deny that it was a prescient movie as far as where the meta sort of horror movie was going.
Yeah.
But in the interest of voicing an unpopular opinion, I'm not huge on A New Nightmare. Basically, the movie opens on the set of them shooting a Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Yeah.
And Wes Craven is a character. He's directing the movie. Heather Langenkamp is a character.
Robert Englund is a character.
Robert Englund is a character.
Robert Shea shows up in this movie.
I do think that, for the most part, I mean, people who didn't intend to spend their lives in front of the camera, like Robert Shea and, Wes Craven himself, okay, well, I'll give them, I guess, something of a pass. But as far as Robert Englund and Heather Langenkamp, if you cannot play yourself convincingly, that raises questions to me. Anyway,
okay.
I think that what Wes Craven was going for is that in the sort of culture of myth making, of which I think we can include horror movies a part of, you lock into something. You are telling stories that bubble up from the subconscious. Wes Craven has said that a lot of his best ideas have come from dreams, hence Nightmare on Elm Street, stuff like that. But I think the conceit is that you're harnessing something real. There is some sort of supernatural element that you get this inspiration from. And somehow giving it a shape and giving it a name, in this case, the shape and name of Freddy Krueger, you empower it.
Yeah.
And so basically the conceit of the movie is that the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise has conjured this actual physical demon.
Yeah.
Or whatever you want to call it. I'm just using
Dream
the word.
demon. Dream demon, essentially.
That can exist in the real world and do real damage. Most notably, Heather Langenkamp's husband is the first victim of it here. So it's got a lot of balls in the air, and it's a fairly forward-thinking horror movie, especially for 1994. This is before Scream. I understand why people like it. I think what the most important element that Scream had, that this movie doesn't, is a self-aware sense of humor.
Yes.
This has none of that. In
Yes,
fact,
this
it
is
has
actually
so little of it.
Yeah,
that
this is a nasty horror.
Yeah. It's a
mean
proper horror film, but I think the fact that we're looking at Wes Craven and Rob Shea putting themselves in a horror movie, instead of feeling innovative, feels kind of pretentious.
Really? Really? Because to me, the scene where Heather actually visits Wes Craven at his house, or maybe it's Robert Englund. It is Robert Englund, but there's two scenes where Heather visits both Wes Craven and Robert Englund, and they're both very much terrified and affected because Freddy's also affecting them. I thought that worked really, really well, and I did not find it pretentious. I mean, in a lot of ways, what Craven here has done is he's done a horror version of The Player. So there's a little sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
But not humor, I would say. Maybe a wink and a nudge, but he's making a horror movie here. He's asking us to take this all very seriously.
Yeah.
And that's fine. In fact, generally speaking, I prefer that. But that's definitely what differentiates it from the Scream franchise. And like I said, I mean, I was saying it comes off pretentious. I'm not saying necessarily that it is pretentious, but I'm saying without that wink, without that sort of Scream edge to it, it reads a little bit that way. It reads like, look at me, I'm a producer, but now I'm in front of the camera. The horror movie is slowly becoming about the people who make it.
Yep. I think for that story to work, though, and the story they're telling with this, they had to, because at this point, Wes Craven, everyone knows who Wes Craven is. Most people know who Heather Langenkamp is. Everyone knows who Robert Englund is. So to have them play themselves and be deeply affected by this evil manifestation of Freddy Krueger, to me, it worked. Yeah,
I felt their fear too, but their responsibility. If they did unleash this evil spirit in the world, like, they're responsible for these deaths.
Yeah. Something else that to me that really, really worked, because at this point, is this like the 7th Nightmare on Elm Street film? Or is that 8th?
Yeah.
So at this point, Freddy Krueger was basically a walking comedian.
That is true.
He comes, he kills, he tells a somewhat funny line, and then dismembers his victim. So Freddy had ceased to be menacing. In this film, he's very much a threat, and he looks different.
Yeah.
Horror films got their start in German expressionism, that art form, all the way starting with The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. A lot of people sort of credit that film as the birth of horror movies. This film is marinated in that style. Even the dream world at the end. And I kind of agree the film loses its steam because we know that Freddy's going to, eventually lose this battle and they get the kid back. But that world, the imagery with that, it's a mixture of M.C. Escher, German expressionism. Like, to me, those images just danced across the screen. Yeah. And once again, this is Craven engaged here. Even the look of Freddy with, instead of that usual metal claw hands, it's bones and, sharp bones. I thought that was a neat element. And he's mean. He's mean and nasty. He doesn't throw these one-liners that it had been synonymous with Freddy. This one, we don't even see the real Freddy until really the third act. There's a genuine palpable dread that goes for 2/3 of this movie. And then when Freddy does finally show up in all his glory, it loses a little bit, but he's gorgeous to look at in that regard.
Well, I will agree with you that Craven effectively gave Freddy his teeth back. Yeah. Because especially by that last entry, Freddy's Dead, I mean, it stopped being even pretending to be a horror movie and became this just ridiculous, violent cartoon. And I think that his genuine attempt to make Freddy frightening again, I respect that. I also have this feeling like it's another Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and it's cool, but where do you go from here from a franchise standpoint?
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree. And it was a difficult decision to, what do you do since there's been about 6 other films before this? How do you make this even remotely scary again? Because Freddy at that point had ceased to become scary.
Yeah.
And I think he succeeded for the most part. Is it perfect? No. Like I said, the film sort of loses its steam towards the final act.
I think that the scene with the babysitter in the hospital was well rendered.
Yeah.
Both the trust relationship between Heather Langenkamp and her, as far as her saying, to don't let those doctors put that kid to sleep, and the babysitter, backing it up almost violently, doing everything right, making us like her, and then having her killed in a, I think, consciously called back murder sequence to the first kill from the original Nightmare on Elm Street, with her being dragged up the wall of the hospital, and I think that scene really works. And you're right, Freddy is scary briefly for that moment, but it took a long time to get there, and I do think that the movie is a little slow. I do
also want to give a special shout out to Miko Hughes. For all you horror nerds out there, he's the kid that was in Pet Sematary, where he was in Mercury Rising. What else have I seen him in? Apollo 13. He didn't. I think kids acting in movies, it's a hard sell in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
it's a tough racket, and I think he does pretty well in this movie. I don't know if it was this movie or Pet Sematary, but at one point the kid had to cry, and this story disturbs me in a lot of ways. But they were trying to get this scene where the boy was, to be visibly upset and crying, and the director wasn't getting it. And so the parents came in and says, well, we know how to make him cry. We just don't like to do it, but we know how to, we can get this shot for you. And so they went and they whispered in his ears that that they were going to die soon. And that visibly, in his eyes just went, and the tears just came like that.
Yeah, that's child abuse. That's child abuse.
It is. So I don't know if it's this movie or it was Pet Sematary, but I found him pretty good in this movie. He didn't annoy me, I'll say that much. No. But yeah, that story has always kind of stuck with me whenever I think of Miko Hughes in that regard.
I do think it's tricky handling kids in horror movies. Like, especially the more involved they are. Like, he's being kidnapped and chased around by Freddy, you know. So it's much like the little girl in The Exorcist. I mean, how can you ask a girl to do that and not, you know, somehow break her innocence a little bit, you know?
Well, and also taint your own soul if that's, you know, if you believe in that kind of stuff. I do also like the element because the stuff with the California earthquake, that's all real as well. And once again, Craven went out with his film crew, and like that's all authentic. That's real stuff you're seeing there. So
I really like that Heather woke up from her first dream to the earthquake. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah. So I like that as well.
Again, I always come off way more negative than I mean to. Here's what I will say. I love that it sets the table for Scream.
Yeah.
Because I really do think that it does. And I love that it's a much stronger entry in the Nightmare on Elm Street series than we've seen in a while. That said, I can't help but wonder if Wes Craven had been in charge of the Freddy Krueger franchise and we had 7 Wes Craven Nightmare on Elm Street movies, if they would be more or less interesting than the ones that we had. They would probably not be as funny, but they might be more art wank. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. That I agree. I don't think we would have 7 Freddy Krueger movies.
That's exactly why he's not involved, right?
Yeah. No, I know he was quite bitter and jaded. He read the script for the second run and went, "This is shit." Yeah. And they proceeded to make the gayest horror film, or one of the gayest horror films ever made.
Yeah. So, there are good things to be said about it. I mean, there are people that seem to just love this movie, and there are people that hate it, and I'm kind of in neither camp. I think it's an above average entry in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Yeah. But I think it's maybe a little bit oversold. I think it's maybe it's prescient to where horror movies were going, but it's not as smart as you know where we arrive when we get there.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.
Welcome to my nightmare.
We're not safe awake or asleep.
Okay. At long last, after 10 years, maybe more of pre-production, almost 30 years combined between the two series, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, the code was finally cracked. They came out with a screenplay. And they landed on for a director, of all people. And I swear to God, they blindfolded someone and threw a dart. But they landed on Ronnie Yu. And I'm happy that they did. Even though Ronnie Yu, to his own admission, had never seen a Friday the 13th movie.
I think that's what they liked about him.
And the fact that his background was largely in sort of violent martial arts spectacle type of movies. Most famously, The Bride with the White Hair.
Yes, but at this point he had done Bride of Chucky,
which was a fairly successful...
which got him this gig, essentially.
He sort of did a good life, full of life entry into Child's Play. No reason to think he couldn't do the same for Friday the 13th. Yeah. But at this point, Nightmare on Elm Street, or this Freddy vs. Jason movie was a big deal. Yeah. A lot of money is tied up in this. Yeah. And a lot of... I'm
surprised it took that long to get made, though. Like, it was in New Line's hands for well over 10 years. Yeah.
Just to get it to where they needed it to be and to make it a workable scenario and probably work out the behind-the-scenes dealings of who's getting what percentage of what, you know. Here they come. A lot of those decisions seemed like out of pocket to be bad. And most controversially, we lose our Jason Voorhees. Kane Hodder is no longer going to be playing Jason, as he has since Part 7 now. Yeah. So that was big news. The choice seemed almost purely aesthetic. Yeah. Probably at this point they'd have to pay Kane a good amount of money since he's returning this much time. But I honestly think they just wanted the image of sort of the small, wiry, spindly Freddy Krueger against the big fucking lug football player looking, Jason Voorhees, just to get that image, make it as solid as possible. Yeah. I've already gone on record for Rank and Review just saying that I'm a huge Freddy versus Jason fan.
It works, and it works so well.
So I'm going to put the ball largely in your court here.
Yeah.
I think it's a modern horror fantasy classic in a way. I mean, maybe put quotes around classic, but people will be pondering this movie for many decades to come. It will be a curio. And the fact that it was a bona fide box office blockbuster.
It was number one for 3 weeks in a row. Like, it just kept going. There was talk for the longest of times to, make a sequel and make other crossovers. Like, there is a script in Hollywood somewhere of Ash versus Michael Myers versus Freddy and Jason.
And there's all sorts of comic book permutations, but who knows what, if anything, will come of that. It's weird because then you're getting into a series of several different unspeaking killers fighting each other, which gets tricky story-wise. But anyway, Freddy versus Jason. Cole's notes of the plot. Freddy has been forgotten. He needs to be remembered. He's in hell.
Which is a cool idea, actually.
He reaches out to Jason in his dreams, awakens him from his slumber because Jason can never die, tells him through the visage of Jason's mother that he must go to Elm Street and kill the naughty teenagers there. Thus creating fear in Elm Street, thus bringing back thoughts of Freddy, thus bringing more power to Freddy so he can do his business again. Problem is, by the time Freddy's getting powerful enough to do his killing, Jason's done most of the work for him. This causes conflict, and since there's nobody to mediate, they just have to work it out physically, you know, because, that's just how they do business. It's interesting to me that they're both terrible and they both, have a steep body count to their backs, but very quickly, because I prefer the franchise Friday the 13th to Nightmare on Elm Street, I came in a Jason fan. But Freddy does establish himself as the villain of this piece in a lot of ways.
Definitely, the puppet master to Jason's sort of puppet. You're meant to really not like Freddy Krueger. He is the villain of the piece in a lot of ways.
And that's always been the way. Jason's very businesslike and like a blunt instrument. Like I said, like if you go where you're not supposed to be, he will kill you. That's it. That's how he does his business. Freddy will kill, as many people as he can, and not only will he kill them, he will make fun of them as he kills them, and he seems to enjoy the torture of it. So I like him less. I guess it's hard to say I like either of them, but I like Freddy less. Well, production values and acting across the board, very strong.
Yes. And, I have to say, the fights between the actual, when they do finally happen, the two, legends, if you will, is sort of like a giant cartoon. And I think that works within that universe to make it sort of, a ha-ha slapstick. The violence isn't... It's definitely different, from the film that comes after it.
I do think that in that respect, in the fight, the fact that he comes through the sort of martial arts background and the wire work really actually added another dimension. Because in another person's hands, I think the fight would be a little bit more sluggish, or slower, or more brutal. It would be a slower fight, but the wounds will be more substantial, as it were. There's a cartoon quality, a goofy quality to it. But it does all of this goofiness while respecting both franchises. And that's in the screenplay as well. But I also got to give Ronnie Yu a lot of points for that, because I think he said he was familiar with Nightmare on Elm Street, but less so with Friday the 13th. So it's a lot of elements to juggle, and the story is somewhat convoluted.
You touched upon this earlier when we've talked about this movie, that you do call bullshit on one thing, and that's when Jason would walk into the house just to kill one person, that the boyfriend of the one girl.
The first big kill of the movie. It's a great kill, but Jason does walk into a house full of kids, kill one person and leave. Kind of got to call shenanigans on that, but that's the only real loud one. A lot of the fanboy stuff will debate, who really won the fight. And at the end of the day, spoilers, kids, we see Jason emerging from the lake holding Freddy's severed head. But Freddy's head winks at us. What does it mean?
It means that he never dies. This will go on and on and on and on.
But to my mind, I think, the fact that Jason's carrying Freddy's head suggest that Jason was victorious in that battle. And if you go by kill count, I think Freddy only actually kills one. Am I wrong? He kills Jason Ritter's best friend, the Canadian actor whose name I always forget.
He kills that stoner.
He possesses the stoner, but Jason hawks him in half. Like, you could be argued that Freddy does more physical damage to Jason and even more psychological damage to Jason, and that he, makes Jason relive the drowning.
I guess that Freddy only really killed that best friend.
Yeah.
Brother.
Jason does the bulk of the killing in the movie, and I think in a way that's
he
smart.
does kill the best friend. Yeah.
Yeah. In a way, it's smart that he does that because Jason doesn't have a voice.
Yeah.
Jason just gets to do what Jason does.
Yeah.
The only voice we get is Freddy, and he can do things like turn into the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland and possess the fucking stoner who's clearly trying to be Jay from Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah.
And if you make it your life's mission to emulate performance-wise Jason Mewes, you failed as a human being. I don't care if they said a Jason Mewes type in the script. It was just a derivative lazy performance in a movie that didn't have a lot of derivative lazy performances.
No.
It was a character that I liked to see die, and not just because, it was one of those distracting characters. It was just like, ugh. He does arguably have the funniest line, though, of the movie.
Which is?
Dude, that goalie was pissed about something. That goalie was pissed about something.
Yes, it does boast, a rather epic, killing sequence, which, I basically tears of joy and a little bit of giggle went out, kind of happened when I saw it. What would you call it? The raver scene? The rave party.
In the middle of a cornfield. Well, in the middle of a farm.
Some of the best Jason minutes ever put to celluloid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's completely engulfed in flame. He carves a path through the cornfield and hacks his way through this rave.
Yes.
Like, we've talked before about Jason being an asexual creature.
Yeah.
In the novelization of Freddy vs. Jason, which I would love to read if it existed, Jason realized for the first time in his life that he had an erection while killing all of those kids in the rave. Didn't even understand why. It's just like, it seemed like his entire existence was leading up to this moment of killing these obnoxious kids. One of the first kids he kills at the rave, too, is like date raping Ginger from Ginger Snaps.
Right. Yes, Catherine
Isabel shows up here.
Yeah. Yes, and has, a rather sizable role. Good for her.
Yep. A lot of Canadian talent shows up in here. Yeah. Chris Marquette plays a supporting role in here.
And Jason Ritter's son?
Yeah. John Ritter's son.
John Ritter's son. Yeah, Jason Ritter is in this movie.
And what's the name of the from Destiny's Child?
Kelly Rowland.
Kelly Rowland
has
a part in here, and a memorable dream sequence in which she dreams that her nose is cut off.
Who's the sort of nerdy friend that?
Yeah, I was trying to remember the name of that actor. He's also in 2 of the Ginger Snaps movies. He's a really good Canadian actor. Here, I'll splice his name in. The actor whose name we're trying to remember there is Brendan Fletcher, and it pains me that I couldn't remember his name because he's a working Canadian actor. He's been working in TV and film in Canada since the mid-90s, and he's really good. So I'm glad that he had even a passing role in the immortal classic that is Freddy vs. Jason. You can also see him in 2 of the 3 Ginger Snaps movies, and like I say, almost every Canadian TV show ever made. He's been in a lot of stuff. He's a good actor, and he's somehow managing to stay afloat while still remaining in Canada mostly, it seems.
Yeah.
So good for him. There's just not a lot of bad things for me to say about Freddy vs. Jason. No. It's definitely an acquired taste, but I think if you're going to pay your ticket to see Freddy vs. Jason, you come in knowing, where you stand, right?
This is definitely a huge step up in the whole, echelon or group of both Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. It's a solid action comedy horror.
It seemed destined to fail too. It seemed like there was just no way they were going to satisfy the fan base.
Yeah.
Especially because there was something of a divide between Freddy and Jason.
Yeah.
It's interesting in that I think Nightmare on Elm Street is arguably the more, quote, imaginative of the series.
Yes.
But in a way, I think time is going to be kinder to the Friday the 13th franchise than it is to the Nightmare on Elm Street ones in some ways.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see. I became a Ronnie Yu fan because of this movie. I'm still trying to get my hands on some of his earlier work.
Yeah.
I got into the Child's Play movies backwards through him because of this. It's just like how lucky it was that they managed to land on Ronnie Yu, because
he also did that Fearless movie with Jet Li, which is quite good, actually.
Solid, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of magic to this movie. I don't know, it seems a little bit hyperbolic to say it, but because it, like I say, it just didn't seem like it was possible that they were going to satiate all of the fans and have us coming so proudly and happily, from it. And the movie's over 10 years old now.
Yeah.
I shudder to say.
Yeah.
So they haven't even fucked it up with a lame sequel yet.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it almost won't happen now.
Yeah, if it was going to happen, you'd think it would have. And if it does happen, I doubt it'll happen with Robert Englund.
Yeah.
But it was a weird alignment to where all the stars aligned to please the geeks, and the geeks were pleased.
You have nothing to worry about. This won't hurt one little bit.
So I've already reviewed the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. What was the year that one? 2010. It's already 10 years old.
Yep.
Holy shit. It's on the record. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
But honestly, when we compare it to like my rage of Freddy's Dead, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
Yeah.
Like, there was so much potential, really. I mean, if you must remake this movie, which I don't think you shall, but if you are, here we are 30 years later and change. Special effects have changed. There's all sorts of crazy things you can do with the dreams. There's all sorts of interesting twists. You can mess with our expectations. You can show us a bigger, meaner, modern Freddy.
Yep.
They just opted to not do any of those things. But there's some good acting in it. There's competent
Future
sequences.
Oscar winner.
Rooney Mara.
Yeah.
And I think actually the guy playing Freddy, Jackie Earle Haley, does a decent job of Freddy, and wants Freddy to be scary again.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that impetus, that they didn't lean on the funny at all.
Yeah.
But I don't want this movie, and if it's going to exist anyway, I would have loved to have been surprised by it, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
But as vitriolic as my review with Mitch Oliver of the Terror Table might have been, when taken in the sweep of these other movies, I mean, at least they were trying to be scary, and it wasn't a photocopy of the original movie.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, did I like the movie? Is it a good movie?
No.
Does it do justice to the concept?
Yeah.
No.
No.
So I still think it sucks. What does Beckmann think?
Well, the Beckmann, sorry. What the Beckmann thinks, it was surprising. As I was watching it again this time, I thought there's nothing new that they brought to this table whatsoever. And then they decided to have some of the climax in that old preschool, which I thought was sort of a really neat idea. And even the scene where they go back to Freddy's lair, I thought was kind of like well handled when they find the photos and whatnot.
Right.
Kind of special shout out to the actor who played the love interest.
Right.
I thought that was well done, but all the characters just seemed sort of vanilla. I don't quite understand it, because they were going for straight in a lot of ways. They were trying to play straight horror, and the performances aren't bad. That's the thing. But once again, I couldn't connect. I didn't care.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'm older, I don't connect with this generation of kids or something like that.
Yeah,
they're just a little bit too hip and distant and dead-eyed for me to connect to.
Yeah.
But I don't like to think so. I've seen a lot of, quote, modern horror movies with modern kids, and I can get into it. But I don't know. There's just something that you don't emotionally connect. And worse than that, they have good actors like Connie Nielsen and Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
They don't do anything with them.
Yep.
It's another case, sort of like I was talking about Yaphet Kotto. They have Clancy Brown. What do they do with him? You got Clancy fucking Brown. He can be in terrible horror movies like Pet Sematary 2, but make it watchable because he's Clancy Brown.
Yep.
I say if you've got Clancy Brown in your movie, you give that guy something to do.
Make him work.
Yeah. He's just one of the characters' dad. And we get to see the scene where Freddy gets killed and he's one of the ringleaders.
But I think we're done with him at that point.
He's present. He's there, but they do nothing with him. Connie Nielsen is what they use for the big, mom death at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And congratulations, manages to outsuck the death in the original.
Yeah.
Like, instead of it being a clear dummy being sucked through a small porthole-sized window on a door, she gets stabbed through her eyeballs and sucked back through a window in a, vulgar CG display that's no, thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the big mistakes right off the bat. Is one of the things about the Nightmare series is you're there to see this beautiful orgy of special effects. That's one of the meat and potatoes of the Nightmare franchise. Is you're there to see crazy, over-the-top latex puppetry and mechanicals and see the imagination done right in front of the lens, and it's all done by computer. If you look at it, and maybe that's one thing that there's just no love or design to the kills whatsoever.
Or that sort of tactile, where it sort of you see that the handmade quality of it.
Seriously, can you? Even as we're reviewing the past Nightmare films, we're coming back and remembering certain death scenes, from 1, 2, 3, 4
sequences, as sequences.
It were. Yeah. Remember that death with in the pool with the hand coming down, number 5, blah blah. You remember something like that. There's none of that in this there.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is all the violence and the blood is done by CGI. You can get away with that, sort of like a samurai movie, with a cool aesthetic, but beyond that, no.
It's not what your fan base wants.
Yeah.
I will compliment when they want to be scary. The effects don't work for me, but when the one character is killed but still awake in his dream.
Yeah.
And Freddy says we have 8 minutes to play, or 3 minutes to play, or whatever.
Yeah.
So you just know that whatever went down during those several minutes were just terrible for him.
Yeah.
That's a nice idea, and again, one of the few things that was spare about the movie and scary. So I could have given them points for that. But then they're trying to do this whole bait and switch where maybe he wasn't a bad dude after all.
Yeah.
Maybe he got burned and he wasn't. I wasn't falling for that for a second.
Yeah.
For 2 reasons. The movie's really clumsy in almost everything it does.
Yeah.
And it would be the one thing they could do with that character that would be more offensive than anything else, right? All of a sudden, Freddy Krueger is no longer a child murderer, bastard son of 1,000 maniacs.
Yeah.
He's a wrongfully accused
Yeah.
guy who has now become the sympathetic hero of the franchise.
Yeah.
You guys can go right to fucking hell. That's not happening.
Yeah.
And I knew that wasn't happening. I knew the movie sucked, but I knew it wasn't
If
that
it did,
stupid.
though,
Right?
yeah.
They would hope to make a franchise out of this, right?
Yeah.
They would ideally want to keep going forward. But
Yeah.
much like a lot of the Platinum Dune remakes that came out, it was financially successful but so hated that they didn't go forward, right?
Yeah.
Friday the 13th made a fuck ton of money, but that was that.
Yeah. I think this one movie bombed even financially. No one showed up for it.
And, for the people who wanted to be there, when I reviewed it with Mitch, he said, this is pitched to me. He's not too old for it, and he hated it.
Yeah.
So, it's not just that I'm out of touch. I'm not saying I'm not out of touch. It's not just that I'm out of touch.
Yeah.
Do we want a sympathetic portrayal of Freddy Krueger, and is anybody going to fall for that?
Yeah.
And again, from the writing point of view to the production point of view, who made that call and who thought that was a good idea?
Something as well, there was a lot of darkness to the old New Line Nightmare movies. Like, it is literally bathed in darkness. This movie seemed a lot brighter as well.
Oh, yeah?
There's still a couple of shots where Freddy comes out of the shadow, but we get a really good look at the burnt makeup all around Jackie Earl Haley. It just seemed brighter, and I thought like that was another choice. Like, no. A bad director of photography. You gotta make this movie aesthetically darker.
Well, I'm kind of mixed on the burn makeup. It's authentic. Like, that's much closer to what somebody who would have survived a serious burn would look like. It's almost smooth, like their features have been rubbed out. But it is less frightening. But it is kind of authentic. But sort of, it lends a little bit, quote, more realism instead of it being like a bunch of clearly packed cake makeup dripping off of Robert Englund's face. This guy's been burned. Right?
I would have gone with like showing some like the exposed jawline and teeth and see anyways.
Another complaint, and I hate to repeat myself, but I have reviewed this movie before, and it's still a flaw. It was a flaw the first time I reviewed it, and it's a flaw this time. If you're doing a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, use the dream world. Use the dream world, please. Can we like? Yes, he has claws on his hands and he stabs kids.
The ideas are limitless.
How many times do they go to the boiler? Every time? This is the boiler room movie. This is where like everybody dreams of boiler rooms. Like, you guys literally could do anything, and you said, "What did every other Nightmare on Elm Street do?"
This is the thesis of the whole show.
And I get and there are people yelling at their stereo right now saying, "Well, it's a remake, asshole." Yes, I hear you, but like you got to bring something to the table. You can't just make a photocopy of the movie because then you're the Gus Van Sant Psycho. Nobody wants to be that. You know, that's at best an exercise. It's a fucking waste of time unless you're doing it academically, right? So, a remake is going to also be on some level a reinterpretation. And it's not a sacred cow to a certain degree. Again, if it became about Freddy coming into the real world and killing people in the real world, that's not Nightmare on Elm Street. If you're just going to make a slasher movie, make a slasher movie. That happens all the time. If you're going to make a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, again, use the fucking dream world. Jesus.
Almost complete weird random question.
Yes.
You were talking about how Freddy said is possibly worse than Halloween Resurrection 2. So, what is worse then? Gus Van Sant's Psycho or Freddy's Dead?
Or Freddy's Dead?
Yeah.
Oh, Freddy's Dead.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
How so?
Well, I mean, Psycho's just pointless. It's more pointless than infuriating.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't mad. I was sort of bored and perplexed and like, why? Like, when I watched the Psycho remake, I'm just like, why?
Norman
what was
wrong?
What was the fucking point, you guys? Like, to change so little, it was like pointless. The stuff that they did change stood out so much more at that point. Like, either you change nothing at this point.
What's with the weird little sequence of the cow?
Yeah, but I don't care. Like, I didn't like it, but I wasn't like furious. I just thought it was a dumb idea. It was a waste of everyone's time. Viggo Mortensen, Julianne Moore, Anne Hesh, William H. Macy all had much better things to do and much better movies to make. And Gus Van Sant clearly sold his credibility out to make that movie that nobody fucking cares about. But does it make me angry? Did it offend me as a fan of Psycho? It couldn't. It was so slavishly loyal to Psycho that was its flaw. Its flaw was that it was too loyal to Psycho, whereas Freddy's Dead's flaw was that it seemed to not give a shit. But that's how bad the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street is, though. We've spent the last few minutes not even talking about it.
Yeah.
It is incredibly forgettable.
I know.
And they had such a good story to tell and such potential. Like, shame on them, really. It should have at least been okay.
Yeah.
I should have went for it was all right. They took a swing. They had moments. Nope.
Yeah. You can even count the jump scares. Like it didn't even create a different sort of beat pattern. You knew they were coming. Not once did I jump. I'm sorry I didn't. It was just... There was no love.
I felt embarrassed for Rooney Mara and her big hero line.
Yeah.
Welcome to my world, bitch.
My nightmare, yeah.
So she's got to throw the bitch back in his face, too. Yeah. And, like, you can see it on her face. And she's an amazing actress.
Yeah, no.
Like, she's committed actress. And, like this was a high-profile role. And, she was a young actress. She would want this.
Yeah.
And it's on her face. She knows just how bad that line is.
Yeah.
Like, she's embarrassed. And I'm embarrassed for her.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's the big, punchy, booyah, gotcha line of the movie. Which I think is telling.
Yeah.
Good enough?
I think so.
So there it was. The Nightmare on Elm Street franchise has been reviewed, and now we're going to rank this.
Yep. I've also discovered that Larry should not have 2 cups of coffee before reviewing shows.
Seems like I was uncharacteristically venomous, especially because, like, honestly, despite what you've heard, I don't care as deeply about Nightmare on Elm Street.
There was some, like, sheer nerd rage that came
I would
out.
say I'm my love goes much deeper for both Halloween and Friday the 13th than the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Yeah.
But I think it's like when they go off cue, they veer severely off cue.
But shit got real.
I got it was cathartic. I felt good. I'm sorry if it made other people feel bad.
I just feel bad. By the way, Rachel Tallahaye, once again.
I'm sorry.
She now lives in Vancouver, eh?
She's Canadian. Hey, look, I don't think, like I said, that's all her fault, but it's not a good movie. And she was there from the ground floor, and she's got to know that it's not a good movie, and that's got to suck for her. So she doesn't need me calling her out anymore. Again, it took a village to make a movie that fucking epically bad.
Okay. All right.
What was your least favorite of these?
Well, I know what your least favorite will be. Well, since we've already started talking,
I make sure that you know our friendship is on the line.
Why is it getting hot in here? Well, shockingly, at number 9, I have Freddy's Dead.
What?
The Final Nightmare. Our friendship will remain intact.
Oh, thank God I was sitting down.
Yeah. Because, wow, that movie. I'm so sorry, Rachel Tallahaye, really. Like she's listening to this. But, alrighty. At number 8, I have the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Sort of just a vanilla milkshake version of it. At number 7, I have Nightmare 5, The Dream Child. An interesting muddled mess, but meh. At number 6, I have Nightmare 4, The Dream Master. Once again, as a Nightmare entry, the wheels start to fall off, but it's not, like, bad.
Right. Number
5, I have A New Nightmare, which Cameron comes back to the series. We've already talked about this. You know how we feel. This is when it gets interesting, because I really had to think about how good these movies are. You know, you talked about, like, one thing that you sort of look at when you're ranking movies. The film set out an objective, and did it accomplish that?
Right.
And I sort of had to play with that a little bit, because I do think Freddy vs. Jason achieved its goal. It's a giant, violent horror cartoon movie that just played so well. But I have it at number 4. I have Freddy vs. Jason at number 4. I don't know why. It just... a lot. Anyways, I'll get to that. I have it at number 4. I think this is where we're gonna like obviously, diverge part, if you will, and with the acknowledgement that Nightmare 2 is a bad movie. So I have Nightmare 2 at number 3, above Freddy vs. Jason. And I know you're already giving me that look. No,
we don't have to agree.
You can't see.
We don't have to agree.
Yeah. The fact that where it started from, as a movie that is so oddly anti-gay, like it's a homophobic movie, and now it's come full circle where it's completely embraced by the LGBTQ community. It's so wonderful and bizarre that I guess for this reason I have it at number 3, which is strange. Maybe it's also
if we were ranking crazy 80 movies, sure. Yeah. But I'm ranking Elm Street movies.
I know.
That's me.
I know. But also Freddy vs. Jason is not really a nightmare movie, though. But
I hear you.
But it's quality. It's quality. I don't know. Nightmare. Anyways, so number 3, I have number 2, and this is where it gets controversial. Because Nightmare on Elm Street is a classic movie.
It's not controversial at all. I thought you would have seen this one coming.
It's a classic horror movie.
Yeah.
This is the introduction of Freddy. But at number 2, I have the original A Nightmare on Elm Street. And at number 3, and I know there's people out there that, have also thought this way, but I think it's as I said it again and I said it before, I think it's a great comic book horror movie.
Yeah.
A little bit ahead of its time.
Look, year 1 and 2 are right on point. Because I agree. I'm putting Dream Warriors in number 1 as well.
Right.
I think that Nightmare on Elm Street definitely kicked down the door, introduced the world to Freddy, and upped the game for slasher movies, and thank you.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street finished the story.
Yep.
Part 3, Dream Warriors finished the story.
Yeah.
Really, if we're honest, Nightmare on Elm Street is 2/3 of a horror movie. It kind of stops more than it ends.
Yeah.
And 3 course corrects for that.
Yeah.
In a way that you wouldn't have suspected. But let me back up. You guys know what my top 2 are going to be. I assumed that you would know that too.
Yeah.
And this does seem counterfeit because I did put Elm Street on the best horror movies of the 80s and not Elm Street 3s. But in my head, they are that connected.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah.
Freddy's Dead. I don't know if it came across. I don't know if it came across in the review, but I do not have a lot of positive feelings about it. So yes, I am going to put it in last place.
Yeah.
And hopefully never, ever, ever have to think about it again.
I actually saw little spit come out of you.
I was exercising it from me, and now it's out.
Yeah.
And I just puked it out, and it's gone. Yeah. On my website, I have this sort of treaty that I was saying for Rank and Review. I get bored with people who are just about vitriol and hate. There's enough of that on the internet.
Yeah.
I cop to completely fucking failing at that today. I really don't have a lot nice to say about that movie.
And you have defended some.
Hey, look, I will play D for some crazy movies.
Yeah.
The remake is not as bad as maybe Mitch and I implied when I reviewed it with him once upon a time.
Yeah.
It's just super, super duper, super bland.
Okay.
And the one thing that a nightmare movie shouldn't be is super duper bland.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's horrible, it's that it's just so forgettable. And that they made a Nightmare on Elm Street remake that was forgettable is almost worse than they ambitiously failed and stepped on a rake. You know? Elm Street 5. Almost, but not quite. The Stephen Hopkins entry of it. I mean, if you're in the mood to watch an Elm Street movie, this is another one, but it's not a high bar to crest here.
Yeah.
This is where it gets weird. I mean, I put Nightmare on Elm Street 2 Freddy's Revenge there. As a crazy 80s movie, for sure. It's absolutely bizarre. But it breaks a lot of rules.
Yeah.
And, again, coming off the back of Nightmare on Elm Street, they had such a great thing to work on.
Yeah, no.
I get the kitsch, and there's reasons to like this movie, and like it is hilariously off key, and like unintentionally so, and you can get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
But as a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, I just can't do it.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I almost put it ahead of Elm Street 4.
Yeah.
But I'm even going to let Elm Street 4 take it. As pissed off as I was at Elm Street 4 killing off my Dream Warriors, I'll still let it rank ahead of Freddy's Revenge because it at least feels more Elm Street to me. Then we have Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is kind of the wild card, like outside of the... It doesn't feel per se like what we mean an Elm Street movie to be.
Yeah.
But this is like where you imagine Wes Craven would have taken Elm Street had he taken the ball.
It's still a nightmare movie too.
Yeah, but it's operating in a different level.
Yeah, different universe. There is no Elm Street technically.
I like it in a way more as an Elm Street picture than I do in a canon of Wes Craven films in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it obviously was a stepping stone that led him to greater things. And it was a forward-thinking horror movie, which Wes Craven was about. But forward-thinking doesn't always mean great. Shocker was a forward-thinking horror movie, and it hasn't particularly aged well.
Yeah.
So it's good. Some people think it's great. I just think it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's not an insult. It's a good movie. It's just not amazing.
Yeah.
So, all right. Then, Elm Street 4, as I talked about. The new Wes Craven's New Nightmare. We're down to the top 3. Freddy versus Jason. Arguably, you're right. Not very much of an Elm Street movie. Arguably more of a Friday the 13th movie. Jason does all of the killing pretty much. And whether or not you want to call it a tie, apparently the film's director, Ronnie Yu, says that he thinks Freddy won. I don't see that.
I call
Jason
baloney.
is holding Freddy's severed head. Yes, that severed
He's
head
He's walking out of the water in triumphant.
His competitor still has his arms and legs in the body. So to me, that felt like a win. So it might be more successful as an, quote, Friday the 13th movie. But I get a lot of joy out of Freddy vs. Jason. I understand that it's dumb. I understand it's for a very specific audience. I just happen to be in that very specific audience. But for the record, in my most much beloved Friday the 13th movies, Freddy vs. Jason topped the scales, right? So it's interesting that it's all the way down in third place. Absolutely, Nightmare on Elm Street 1 ranks at number 2, although it is a bona fide horror classic because of what it established, because of what it made. Nightmare on Elm Street 3: The Dream Warriors not only finished the deal, but just set off a fucking bomb in my imagination as to what a horror movie could be. And how a sequel didn't have to be a derivative, photocopy of diminishing returns. You can actually up your game. You can actually improve upon a good idea instead of just exploiting it. So, I'm giving Dream Warriors number 1, damn it.
So, is it The Empire Strikes Back of the horror sequels?
Is it the greatest horror movie sequel? Well, that's a tougher conversation. I think it's definitely in the conversation for greatest horror movie sequel, but I think more research needs to be done before I definitively give it the crown.
All right, there you go.
But look at Elm Street 1 and 3 as sort of one epic monster horror movie. And that's the best of the best of the best. That's what Elm Street can and should be. Those are so good that's why I was so mad at how bad Freddy's Dead got, right? Because of how good those were, it made it sting so much more. Right? Like, even in the Friday the 13th movies, a lot of them I get vitriolic about. Friday the 13th is an okay, fun, fine enough slasher movie, but it is what it is, too. Like, it's very simple. Like, they upped the game of slasher movies, so to just go ahead and, let's just make a boring derivative, whatever. What do we think the kids would like? Not what,
I think for me, and why I put number 2 on this list above Freddy vs. Jason and even New Nightmare, because I will acknowledge that New Nightmare is a scarier and better made horror movie than number 2. But I'm thinking about rewatchability factors.
Right.
And maybe it's because I've also seen New Nightmare a lot, and I also seen Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy vs. Jason I've seen so many times now. I don't know how many times I've seen it. So when I watch it again,
that's totally healthy, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
Certainly nothing crazy about that.
No.
He said, slowly backing out of the room.
I feel bad that that made the air. Oh well, whatever. But I honestly can't remember how many times I've seen that movie now.
Oh yeah, I'm like that with Jaws.
Yeah. But I know at some point that I will revisit Nightmare 2. There's something very rewatchable about it, and
it's one of those movies that if you know someone who hasn't seen it,
yeah,
you'd almost just want to show it to them, just to break their brain a little bit.
Yeah.
But again, I was grading this list as Elm Street pictures.
No, I hear you.
So that's why I did that. I mean, again, we disagree, but I'm not going to really fight with you.
Yeah.
I think I might have been cross if Freddy's Dead wasn't at the bottom of your list. If you thought that the remake out sucked, I might have fought you a little bit on that. But again, it's not a hill I need to die on. Despite what you may have heard during this epic edition of Rank and Review, I'm not usually that passionate about Elm Street.
Nerd Rage!
Nerds! So here's a little sneak preview.
Right.
I think we've settled our Elm Street discussion.
Okay.
Since I'm visiting Beckmann, I'm in the basement of his home. We're actually going to record another podcast tomorrow.
Right.
This is far in the future. It could be 2021 before you guys are hearing it. But we're doing some star-studded creature features.
Dang.
Like, throw some names out for them.
Oh, man. Bruce Willis.
Nick
Nolte.
Yep.
Johnny Depp.
Yep.
Cheech Marin,
sure.
Yeah.
Woody Allen,
yes. Sylvester
Stallone, Christopher Walken.
Yep. Sharon Stone.
Yeah, all over the place.
And Danny Glover.
Crazy, star-studded, shocking creature feature episode. If this episode excited you, our next collaboration is going to make you shit yourself.
I feel almost bad that we're talking about it. Like it should, but I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I am impotent with fear.
Mel Gibson, John Cleese, Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
So many celebrities, so many creatures.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it.
This topic is going to be controversial.
How do you rank it?
I don't know. How Jeff Bridges.
I don't want to give it away. Oh yeah, the dude. Even. There's so many celebrities in this creature list, so you got that to look forward to.
Scandalous.
I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you guys can guess, I'm assuming, from the names.
Yeah.
Star-studded creature features on the horizon.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to Rank and Review. How refreshing it was to record a podcast face-to-face with someone, like of them actually being in the room with me. This whole age of COVID had me doing a lot of podcasts over Skype and on the computer, so it was nice to see Beckmann, to hang out with Beckmann in his basement and talk some Freddy Krueger. Very nice. What do you think? How did we do on this ranking of the Nightmare on Elm Street films? Do you have feedback to give me? If so, you can send that feedback to rankandreview@gmail.com. That's ranknreview@gmail.com. Check out the website at rankandreview.ca. And if you want more podcast goodness to put in your ears, I recommend the Shelf Shedding Movie Show, hosted by Jason Dubray, friend of the podcast. I recommend the Terror Table podcast. Check out Cobwebs, the Gothic Horror podcast, and check out Welcome to Riverdale. All of these podcasts are good things to listen to. All of these podcasts are hosted by friends of mine. Thank you so much for supporting Rank and Review. Please spread the word on the show. And join us next episode where my friend Scott Lehman and I will discuss found footage.